Audience, please. Hold on, Dana. We got the Pledge of Allegiance here. Okay? Let's stand over the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, roll call, Dana.
Trustee Goldberg,
Here.
trustee Hanky,
Here.
trustee Hanson. Here. Trustee Ehrlich,
Here.
President Lamont,
Here.
trustee Solomon.
Here.
I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move.
Second, any changes or comments? If not, the agenda is approved. Minutes of the last meeting, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the February 12th meeting?
I move.
Second? No second? Okay. Comments?
I have a bunch of comments.
Okay.
Sorry, Dana. I'll start. Page 1. At the bottom where you talk about, we talked about Ankita Vyas on Franklin Park Drive talked. What I think she was talking about, and somebody can correct me always if they think me is wrong, was that she was talking about water drainage issues, that water was draining from other people's property into her property, and that's where the garbage and the dog waste was coming from. It wasn't that it was not being properly disposed of, which it wasn't. Of course, it wasn't being put in the garbage, but it was a water flow issue, right?
Actually, I thought it was both the water flow issue and there were people who were walking their dogs and dropping cups and stuff along the way.
That's not what I remember, but that you, might be, you listened to it another time, but maybe listen to it one more time and make sure.
Okay.
All right. And on page 4, let me just make sure there's nothing else. On page 4, when we were talking about Emmons, when she was explaining how the villages had a 1.3 million change in public safety due to a net investment loss, one of the biggest things that she said, and I think she really emphasized, was that it was due to the stock market, and that since then, it has already rebounded so that we've already recouped our losses. And I think that was an important point she said a couple times, and I think that's important to put in here.
I agree with that.
Is it public safety expenses, or is that the public safety reserve?
I'm not sure what it was that had declined, but it says here, it does say here, she explained at the third bullet point, she explained the village net pension liability increased by $843,000 this year, and due to the decline in this year, it says the liability increased
Okay.
due to a decline in the stock market, but the village has already recouped the loss. So it was said there,
Okay.
but I guess
Okay.
that's fine. Okay. On page 5, under my comment, under council report, we wrote, Ehrlich discussed the village-owned picnic tables. And what I was requesting was for the village to replace the ones that have fallen apart and have been decommissioned and discarded. I was not asking for anything else with that statement. So that's all that should be said there.
Oh, no, that was,
That was that one statement. I wasn't talking about potential funding sources or the number of tables needed for summer
but
events.
that was just a summary of everything we said, not that you were looking for funding for the tables.
Okay, but it's confusing.
Okay.
So I discussed the picnic tables and requesting the village pay to replace them, and I think there were 4 to 5 of them. And then the next statement, I wanted to consideration from the council for just support for the FCA's welcome book and map. Then the estimated cost is not what I was asking for. I was estimating that was the cost for printing, so that could just be crossed out because that was a side that didn't even need to be said. What I was asking for was $500 to create a map for that of the community area, so we could put it in the welcome book and use it in the master plan as well.
Okay.
And then, on page 9, under, again, something that I said, it says Ehrlich wanted the council to consider funding community groups. I wasn't asking for that. I was asking that we create a policy or a plan regarding that so that we kind of have an idea of how we're going to do that in the future. And lastly, on the very last page, when there was a vote regarding the extranet systems application, it was me who voted nay and Hanson voted yay. And then I'm done.
Okay. Any other changes?
I just have
David?
one, kind of technical, on page 10, with this resolution regarding next big night out. So just Dana, you just don't have the motion in the second, you just have the vote.
Oh, okay.
That was it.
Okay. Okay, anything else? All in favor of approving the minutes as amended? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, public requests and comments. If you have a comment about something that's not on the agenda, come up to the podium, identify yourself, and make your comments. No public comments? Okay, let's move on to reports of village officers and agents. Chief Roberts?
Good evening, everyone. I have a few things to discuss with you tonight. Not really anything additional in terms of crime on our written crime report. I do have some things that I wanted to go over, though, on the administrative side of the house with you. Hopefully, you all received a budget from me recently in your mailboxes. As you know, we had to prepare that pretty early because Bingham Farms works on a different schedule that Franklin does. Just as kind of the highlights of that, our request is about 4.2% up from last year's request. A lot of that is being driven by the costs of health care as well as our retirement, our MERS retirement contributions. There's also some other things in there that accounted for the 4.2% increase, including some needed station maintenance items. And I'm trying to think what else off the top of the head. But most of that is driven by the insurance costs and our retirement costs that went up. If you have any questions at all about any of the line items in the proposed budget, please feel free to give me a call. I have backup documentation for every item, so I'd be happy to discuss it with you, or anyone, actually, that's interested in knowing anything about it. The other thing is, some of you I see have our new annual report. Those were also put in your mailboxes. They was put online. It's on the village website as well. Bingham Farms Council also has copies of it, and we have hard copies here at the village offices as well as at the police department if anybody's interested in it. Some good stuff. We really appreciate our police clerks who work really hard on that. Stephanie and Rose worked really hard putting that together, so we appreciate all the statistics they gathered for that. There's some great stuff in there. The only thing that I will point out is the cover photo is from a Detroit Free Press photographer who actually, during one of our storms, that's right on 13 Mile at Oak Leaf Lane, that was one of the major storms with power outages, and she came through and saw it, took that picture, and she gave us permission to use it. So,
Great picture.
isn't it? Yeah, we thought so too. And so we gave her credit in the cover for it as well, but really a nicely framed picture, and we appreciate her allowing us to do that. Also administratively, we found out that one of our officers who's been with us a long time, Kimberly Bonacorsi, is retiring. She put in her retirement papers, and she's going to leave in June. We appreciate her giving us the heads up on that, and so we have time to plan for a transition there. She will be missed greatly. Many of you may not know her because she works nights. She's worked nights almost her entire career here by choice. She has seniority, but she chooses to work the night shift. So many of you may not see her or know who she is, but she's been a great officer for us for a little over 10 years now, and we appreciate her. And you'll hear more about a function for her in the future. But related to that, we are now in a position where we need to hire. And so we posted the position in all the appropriate places, MML, the chiefs of police sites, as well as the police officer sites, the union sites, and things like that. So far, we've only had one application and one interview that we've conducted so far, although we like that candidate a lot, but we're still going to wait and see what other candidates are out there. We're potentially going to hire two, not only because of Kimberly leaving, but also myself leaving later in the summer. That will also create another position. So the deputy chief and one of our other officers are going to go to recruit at the local police academies this month as well and see if we can find something. It's a very difficult challenge trying to hire police officers in this environment. I know, for example, in talking to my counterparts in other villages and cities, in Bloomfield Township next to us, they have 7 openings and 0 applicants for their jobs up there. The Oakland County Sheriff's Office is down 21 road patrol deputies. So it's a challenging environment for hiring right now. So hopefully we'll find somebody good and get that going.
So Chief, so thank you for sharing. Actually, in some sense, I'm gonna see the silver lining there. Even though Bloomfield Township, with more money than we are, has 7 openings, they have 0 applicants. Little Franklin Village.
West Bloomfield.
I think
Well,
Bloomfield.
both Bloomfield Township and West Bloomfield, they're both looking for people, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So Little Franklin Village, we have 1 opening and we have 1 applicant. So that's
Yeah.
that's a good sign.
It is a good sign, at least we
So-
have one applicant who is actually a very qualified applicant, and so we look forward to potentially moving forward with that if, depending on how other interviews go. But, yeah, no, we just posted the job a week ago, I think, maybe just a hair over a week ago, so we'll let it run for a while and see what kind of applicants we get. But, yeah, it's a challenging environment. The other part is we're all stealing from each other. And so the one candidate that we do have, if that particular candidate comes with us, we'd be stealing her away from another police department in Oakland County. So it's just the environment we work in right now, unfortunately. And then, well, I don't know if you want me to go right into, I know right on your agenda are the vehicle
Yep,
items.
let's just do it.
Can I just go right into, okay, so the sale of the old vehicle, that's a pretty simple one. We always just post it for sealed bids. Dana did that for us, and we appreciate that. She opened the one and only sealed bid that we received on that from Chicago Motors. Chicago Motors is a company, a taxi company, and some other things out of Chicago, obviously, and they have bought in vehicles from us in the past. So they always look for our bids whenever we post them. I did some little research on Kelley Blue Book. I think their numbers that they're offering are right in line with what the Kelley Blue Book is. They may be $500 or $600 too low, but otherwise I think they're pretty much in line, and I would recommend that you accept their bid for the vehicle, for the sale of the old police vehicle.
There's nothing in the packet that,
Yeah, we didn't get,
but we'll take your word for it.
Oh, you didn't, it's,
We have the sale, the purchase, but not the sale.
That's actually you, I actually had sent it, because we opened it on Friday, so I sent a separate email with the full set
Okay,
information.
I guess.
okay, yeah, it's,
I did-
Chicago Motors offered $13,207 for the used vehicle.
So let's have a motion to accept the bid to sell the police vehicle.
I move.
I'll second.
Second, any further comments? In favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, one down, now the,
The second one's
lease.
a little bit more challenging. That is the police chief's vehicle that is leased, and that's been the tradition here. That vehicle is coming up in April to be replaced based on the three-year lease that we had. So we also went out to bid with that. We also only received one bid for that as well. It's a company that we have done business with, Sneth Camp Chrysler Jeep, that we've done business with for many years as the village. They provided us with a quote that we frankly thought was too high. And so I contacted the sales rep from that dealership this morning to see if we lowered the mileage, perhaps that would make a difference, and it did, made a huge difference. We had originally, for whatever reason, it was bid at 18,000 miles. We don't need that many miles for the chief's vehicle, so we asked them to rebid it for 12,000 miles per year, and that came out to basically $450 a month, which is right in line with what we budgeted for. Had we kept the 18,000 miles, it would have been $549 a month, which was just too much, in my view. So $450 a month is doable and is what we budgeted for in the next cycle as well for that. So I would, again, recommend that as well.
so we need a motion to accept the bid to lease a 2024 Jeep Compass.
I move.
I'll second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
And again, if anybody has any questions at all as you go through the budget stuff, please feel free to give me a call. Be happy to discuss it with you. It's a lot of work to get all of the numbers from our insurance carriers and everybody else, but we have it all, and we're happy to talk to you about that. So, yeah.
I have the booklet was beautiful. So you showed the clerks, you showed the reserves. A particular reason why you don't show the faces of all the officers?
It depends on the year. Some years, what we do is throughout the year, we save great pictures that we take at various functions and things, and it kind of depends on who pops up during that year on the pictures. So some years, yes, they'll be featured, other years they won't be, but throughout the year, we have a folder and we keep pictures that we really like from things like Touch a Truck or whatever, or the Labor Day or whatever it might be. And this year, that's the way it fell this year, so.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other
Plus,
que-
you'll never see a picture of me in there, so just so you know.
One last time.
I have editing control on that. So, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Chief Averbach.
Good evening. You've all received the written report, so if there's any questions, I'll take those. Otherwise, I just wanted to let you know that earlier today I did email out the report for this month. That format will be changing next month because we have new software, and I'm trying to learn how to do database reporting, and it's wonderful. It said me never, but we're going to work on this to maintain the same data. But with that said, though, if there's other data that you'd like to see in the report, please let me know, so that way I could include that as well. So the report program we're using now, we started the first of the month, is called ESO. It's a wonderful program. It's used by thousands of fire departments, but it's just really unique in terms of how to get the data out. Very easy to get it in, very difficult to get it out. So, any questions, any comments, any thoughts? I'd be more than happy to entertain. Great.
Good.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Lance, you out there? Yeah, there you go. Treasurer's report?
Good evening, trustees and president. Please accept my written report in the capacity as the village treasurer. The bills list report for this month totals $305,498.83. The amounts on the bills list are consistent with normal monthly spending, and the expenditures are generally consistent with our budget. The bills list for this month includes a large entry of $90,000. It's for estimate number 13. And that's for the sidewalk project we pay to asphalt specialists. The village has sufficient funds to meet its current and anticipated obligations, and the list of account balances in the package is as of March the 1st. We hold at First Merchant Bank. Any questions? Okay.
I'd like to just make a comment. Lance and I, at Lance's suggestion, are spending a little time looking at what we're getting in terms of returns on the money that we have in the bank. And we have most of our accounts with First Merchants. And this next week on Monday, he and I will be meeting with one of their regional officers on investments and strategies. They're coming here to meet with us for a period of time, walk through some of our alternatives, and see what we can do to try to optimize what it is we're getting out of our investments.
Would this potentially mean a change from our current, the current organization, if you decided, is that where the change would be made?
No, just where the monies are held
Yeah.
within the bank structure.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, good. Thanks for doing that.
Yep.
I think it's really important.
One quick thing, could I get a description, sorry, just for clarification for the public, what the large expense regarding the sidewalk, because it's a sidewalk project, we have a sidewalk subcommittee, it's not associated with that.
Right.
So trying to not create. noise
Roger, do you have any
within the
color on
village.
that for the 90,000?
They have a number of expenses that were, let me back up just a second. For those of you who were here during the COVID period of time and what happened in terms of also our having to start over, basically, with our project because of not being able to construct sidewalks, given our
Yeah.
original start.
Yep.
So with the COVID and the restructuring of what ASI was doing, there was some discussion that was necessary about what was owed and what we got paid. There were some things about which we still had some differences of opinion. And this 90,000 involves a reconciliation between our engineering firm and ASI in terms of the numbers that are due presently.
And is that closed out then?
There is still more that we're going to have to work on in terms of follow-up detail. Mostly, it has to do with some of the detail with stonework and that sort of stuff. But you'll be getting a report on that.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
And
it.
the project is not done. There's still
Yeah,
a lot
understood.
of loose items. Right.
Thank you.
Pam?
Two of your council members took a hearty walk and examined the sidewalks from one end of the village to the next, to get to the point where they understood what still needed to be done.
Okay.
You know, I think it's, without picking nits here, you know, COVID was a factor, but basically, you know, we had to stop work
Yes.
because of a lawsuit.
Right.
That lawsuit cost us several $100,000.
Yep.
And part of what I've asked Roger to do is account for that to as accurately as possible, just for legacy purposes, not to throw darts.
Yeah.
But, you know, if anybody thinks that a lawsuit that shuts down work is free, it's not.
Right.
We had to pay remobilization charges. They took out their equipment,
Yeah.
and we got charged at a new rate for restarting this project. So I appreciate the euphemism, except that it is what it is.
But I think it's important to understand that the timing with COVID is important.
It coincided with COVID,
And-
absolutely.
Well, and it was during that shutdown for COVID that the building industry, the building and trades industry experienced some outrageous price increases.
Yes,
Yep.
So that was
We're
in
still
addition to
experiencing
the other stuff. It was worth mentioning.
yeah, thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, we have a bills list. We have a motion to approve the payment of the bills on the bills list.
I'll move.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments about the bills list? Items on it?
I don't.
None? Going, no? Okay, all in favor of approving the bills list, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, done. Special reports, I have nothing for President's report. Council, any specific, council?
Yeah, March, I just want to recognize as it's passed, but this is the most recent meeting, that International Women's Day was March 8th. So again, I want to commend the leadership from all of the women within our village. I think one of our shining examples of that is Main Street, and I see many faces in the audience. But the number of women-owned businesses within our village and even the leadership within Main Street itself is extremely commendable. And I think, again, from a pure percentages standpoint, is incredible and great to see that we're fostering that leadership within the community. The other thing is yesterday was the start of Ramadan, so wishing a happy Ramadan to our Muslim neighbors. And let's see, with regard to in the bills list, it's not a bills question. We had mentioned the Irving easement was part of that, and I was just wondering where we're at currently with that.
I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, would greatly appreciate that. Just again, to kind of, I guess we can get into it later, but the Pathways Subcommittee, as we continue to work on that, that's something that we've kind of earmarked as other people are thinking about it, so understanding the current status of that would be exceptionally helpful.
I'll get a report out to the whole council.
Wonderful, thank you. I got the calendar for the bicentennial. And one of a lot of events on there, absolutely great to see, is going to be a great, really year as we have planned out now. But I didn't see too much where we have direct involvement, and I do know that we allocated budgeting towards contributions to the bicentennial events. And so I was just wondering if we could also get an update on what we've expended the budgeted funds for, and just where we're at with that. And let's see what else. I know that we had been working on discussions around the marquee. It didn't make it on this month. Are we pushing that off to, do we have the RFPs for that?
Are you talking about a sign?
Yeah.
The sign
Yep.
thing? I have a report on that.
Okay, perfect. So I'll hold off on that. All right. That's it for me.
Okay. Any other council members?
With regards to the bicentennial, I think, I don't know who from council is taking point with the committee that
And Mike has been on the
It's
committee.
Mike?
Right.
Okay, and is Susan doing it too, or?
Susan's been involved in some of the meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So we need to check with Mike to see what.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's no expenses from the village, that there was just, each individual organization was funding their own functions.
Okay,
And
okay.
so
Yeah.
that's where it is right now.
Okay.
There is a mailing that was put in the mail today to all villagers that explains a lot about what's coming up with the bicentennial. So look in your mailbox,
Okay.
next couple of days, you'll see something, so.
I think it'd be really good if, it sounds like you're really, because of where you're at, your role, both with the Historical Society and on council, be great if we could monthly kind of give the community and us an update.
Sure. Sure.
And
Yeah, I would
what your team's been doing, because Mike's not gonna be here till May, so.
Right.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the initial thought was, we need a big coordinating team for this, but as we get into it, we don't, because the FCA's doing stuff, the garden club's doing stuff, they're, Main Street, and they're all tailoring either existing activities or new activities to a bicentennial theme. The first big event is the Barn Dance and Dinner, which will be out here, I'm gonna get the date wrong, it's a Saturday, May 6th.
April 6th.
April 6th, I'm sorry, yeah, it's 5:30. Tickets are on sale online, and there's a Q code on the mailing that you'll be getting in the next couple of days that get you there, so.
Yeah, the other, sorry, just to,
No, go ahead.
I have the flyer as well. I believe they're posted at the village library as well. If
Yeah.
anybody's interested, they can stop by there and pick them up.
Yep.
Thanks.
And there's some out here also. Okay, any other council comments?
I have just one quick one.
Okay.
I mentioned this last month as well. Mike Seltzer and I share responsibility to be the liaison from the village to Next, which is the senior center that's operating currently out of the Midvale School. And the service area for this organization is Birmingham, Beverly Hills, Franklin, and Bingham Farms. They're doing a fundraiser. Their second fundraiser, it's a big one. It's at the Daxton Hotel on April 4th. I believe, Dana, you put something or are going to put something in the newsletter. But if any council members or anybody from the community wants to go, it's going to raise, I think their fundraising goal is $50,000. They're getting close, but this money is going to go to help offset the capital outlays, capital costs that are related to moving from the elementary school where they are into the old YMCA building on Lincoln in Birmingham. So please, consider supporting them. It's based on what I've heard about last year, it's going to be a lot of fun. So, thank you.
That it for council reports?
Yep.
Roger, administrative report?
A couple of things I wanted to share. One is that those of you who may not get into our offices very often may not notice that Megan Boehm is no longer with us. She's taken another job. She's working in Brighton with actually some folks that used to be part of our PD. She's excited about it. She thinks that this is more in line with what she'd like to see her time spent on. We're going to miss her. We've been doing interviews and trying to find some others. It's not easy at this point, but we have several more interviews still this week to try to get somebody in there. So a number of us have been doing double time out front in order to keep stuff going. Okay?
Yes, sir.
One of the things that we talked about at the legal committee was the thing that David had talked about in terms of a sign for out front at the village, and we had been talking about an electric sign. I found, doing a little digging, that there's a place called Electromatic that's located in Farmington Hills. They make these signs. There's none other like it in the Midwest. You have to go quite a way south to get to another one. I visited with them last Monday and got an opportunity to see their facilities, see how these signs are made, the different components of them. It's really quite interesting. And I could not possibly describe to somebody else how to do it. But at any rate, on Thursday last week, David and I met with Chris Ford and another gentleman who is working for another firm that actually does the design work on signs. His name is Matt Thomas with Metro Signs. And they're going to put together a proposal for us, having looked at where we are out here and where we might put a sign. They're going to put a proposal together, both for basically we were talking about a square sign, if I recall correctly, about 4 by 4, and some colonial is the only word that comes to mind, but something like that nature of a sign that would serve that and make it fit into the area around here with the stuff that's around. It was great that they came out and took a look at it, and I expect that we'll have something to share with you at our next meeting, if not before, that gets into this in more detail.
I wonder if, like, in Williamsburg, like, there happens to be any signs like that we could just, I wonder, maybe we should,
Well, there's signs all over the place.
but like, I'm saying, like, in a historic, like, a
Oh,
classically
I see.
historical place
Yeah.
like Williamsburg, Virginia, where you might really get the nitty-gritty kind of,
When you said Williamsburg, I didn't get to Virginia.
oh, you're going next month?
Right.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Between now and then, we'll do some digging in terms of what else is in some other locations.
Yeah.
But I have this catalog. I encourage you to take a look at it, see some of the things that are out there. One of the things that they pointed out to us is that both of the Birmingham high schools have these kinds of signs in front of them. And what was the other one?
Oh, I missed now. So all of the schools around us have them at varying sizes. The two high schools have them that are larger sized.
Right.
Then Berkshire Middle School has one, which is one step down. They had showed us a picture of a town in Michigan that was along what Kathy was saying,
Right.
that had the historical look and was probably 3 by 4.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ones at the high school are massive.
Yeah.
And when you get up close to it, you really see how big they are. They're like taller than a person.
Your neighbors would.
That's not the intent of, I think, what we were trying to accomplish. Of all the stuff they showed us, there was, I don't know if it's in that book, the blue hanging sign from, that looked, oh, I want to say Ida Township or something like that. But,
Yeah. I have Roseville High School, the Gerald Ford International Airport, Royal Oak Farmers Market, Eisenhower High School, Action Water Sports, the list goes on and on, but there's lots of different things to look at.
Yeah, I went by Beverly Hills. They have, the city or village of Beverly Hills. They do have a sign out front for this purpose. They use the old school changeable sign, but they do have one in front of their village.
The advantage of having these gentlemen out looking was that they could take a look at where it was going to be, what distance folks were going to need to read from, so that they could understand the lighting and the size of the signs themselves and what was necessary to get the message out there so people could see it.
Yeah, it ranged from the smaller the number, the more clearer, I should say. So it ranged from 6 to 16. A 16 being like what the high schools had, and a 6 being, what you would see at Comerica Park. That was one of the factors, and probably the biggest factor in cost is the definition of the sign. And a lot of it is based on their expertise and the speed of traffic going by. The faster the speed, the better the pixels you need, the slower the speed, the more you can get away with. There are some that are designed where if you stand right in front of it and look at it, it's a little distorted, so that was like the highest, or the worst quality, 16. So they had said that most of the schools around here were doing 11s, which was in the middle. 11s are now in the current models 10s. So that was, I think, some of the, the various, the cost factors when we asked them, what's the biggest thing that's going to change the cost? Is it what it's sitting in or the actual sign itself? And it's the actual sign itself.
Sure.
So I think we're waiting for them to give us an idea, and then once we get it from them, I think we'll decide whether we want to then put it out for other people to bid on as well.
Right.
I have a note from the last meeting that we were going to send out McKenna's 2 reports, one on the illuminated signs and one on the manual signs. Did that go out?
I don't know that we sent it out again. It went to planning at one point, and I don't know that we've set it with council, but I have both copies with me. I can send it out to you tomorrow.
Yeah, we had asked to have it sent out in advance because we were going to consider it. Do you have the electronic copy? Okay, maybe that would be good to do.
If you could get those, that'd be good.
Yeah, they did the research back in October when we asked
Yep.
planning to look at this. And Chris Dues, the planning consultant, had some, I think, helpful comments about placing such signs in historic districts. And that will be an issue, for us. So I think it would be, before we go any further with this, council really needs to read that analysis.
I think our Historic District Commission needs to be consulted on this one, too. This is-
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they'll,
Well, yeah, it would require an ordinance amendment as well.
yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Is that, any more, Roger?
No, sir.
On this one? Okay, next thing, Planning Commission, Stuart?
Thank you, trustees and president, for letting us present today from the Planning Commission. Interesting update on the signs, and David, thank you for pointing out the ordinance update possibly for a sign that might be larger than our current ordinance allows as a permanent sign. So just as a brief report, since several of our items are already on the agenda today, just to add flavor to those that aren't mentioned on the agenda, the Planning Commission is still considering, we have a public hearing next week on, it says regulation artificial turf. Really, it's large-scale artificial landscaping, since we can't call out specifically artificial turf. So we have a public hearing next week on that. In addition, you already see on their agenda, we shared some of our goals and objectives for our Planning Commission. We also are considering an amendment to the cellular service ordinance, which allows us to be more in line with the current state of Michigan regulation, which they govern how much we can control and where we can control the various, the current cellular ordinance has been passed. This will allow us to be able to have a framework in which we can restrict or allow certain things for cellular service that unfortunately our current ordinance isn't compliant with the law, which means it has no bearing legally. So we're trying to find a way where we can have better control of what we want in the village. And in order to do that, we have to be in line with the state of Michigan.
So the objective is to propose a new ordinance?
It would be to amend or modify the existing ordinance to be in line with the state of Michigan, and then and as well as propose any restrictions that we're allowed to within that law to regulate it.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. Another thing that, just to point out, we did not discuss the Exponent system, the new application. I believe you're aware we needed a counsel with legal before we move on to discuss that further. So we held off for another month, hoping to hear back whether or not it's something we can move forward on discussing. And then everything else is, I believe, on our agenda for you. So, any questions?
Questions?
Yeah, I don't believe it's on the agenda, but where we left off with the Pickering barn was that I think most of council supported private
Yes.
interest in it. Have we had any success in recruiting somebody private?
No,
Investor, I don't know
I mean,
what you would call it.
you go ahead.
So we're still working with Main Street Franklin to develop a plan, business plan, proposal, one-pager to attract investors. I mean, there are I guess anecdotal investors in the who would be interested in doing it. But the real key right now is getting the plan put together. I will update that I did speak with Marcia Gershenson. She called me this morning, indicating that, there is funding that is available. But the private-public aspect of it does complicate things a little bit, but that it could still possibly be worked out. And beyond that funding, there is more funding that could possibly be available for, building out the barn. But I hope that answers your question. We really, we're not at a place yet where we really have everything together for, formal investor enticement.
And what is the title and role of Marcia?
Marcia's the Oakland County Commissioner.
Okay.
Yep. So, okay.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Pete. In addition to that responsibility he's taken on, he's also helping us get become more integrated with some of the other organizations like Main Street. Our work isn't isolated to just writing ordinances, but Main Street has a significant role in our village, and we want to make sure that we're a part of the discussion with them. That's what I have to.
Just one follow-up.
Sure.
With the adjustments to, for instance, like the cell phone ordinance, or cell phone tower ordinance, how will that coincide with the work that we approved last month for review of our ordinances? I'm just wondering from a timing perspective, if maybe we want to hold off until we get that analysis back so that it can be incorporated into any adjustments and we're not duplicating costs. Or we can save costs where possible.
Okay.
That's exactly what I proposed. Chris Dusen had Chris in planning had proposed a new cell ordinance. I told them that we're setting up a meeting with AmLegal to discuss that, and I'm suspecting that they'll propose a cell ordinance as well, and we can compare the two and pick and select. But I have the wheels in motion. I think in the next week or two, I'm trying to set up a date with AmLegal. I'd like for you to sit on it if you can, or it'll be a phone conference or Zoom.
Yeah, sure.
With Chris and Roger, and then it's a little ways away, but the wheels are in motion.
So with that discussion, though, we will be getting more of a comprehensive list of things that are out of date or not allowed. How would the council like us to proceed, other than we can set the priorities ourselves, or If the legal committee would like to also help set priority for those ordinances when they come back, because there'll be an extensive list, because things are always changing. So think about it. You don't have to answer now, but think about how you would like us to focus those efforts. Otherwise, we can use good judgment too.
Makes sense, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, Main Street Franklin, I see a few friendly faces out there.
Hey, everybody. Jeremy Fagan, just in case anybody forgot. I do want to acknowledge, David, what you said about the International Women's Day. Do appreciate that acknowledgement for Main Street Franklin. We are very proud of all the women's-owned businesses that we do have within the village and their representation on our board here. I do also would like to talk about what piggyback off of Pete, that he and Susan and I are all working to put together something for the Pickering Farm. I have been talking to some potential private investors as well. So our next plan is to put together that proposal for them to look at and hopefully get some interest to show to all of you here in the very near future with everything on there. I do want to acknowledge one last thing for Main Street Franklin as a whole. We did complete our accreditation process for 2024 in the last 2 weeks. So we're very proud of that as we look to the end of 2024 and with clear eyes to the future for helping with the development within the village itself right now. So then I'm going to have Pam come up right now.
Hi, I'm Pam Migliori, a member of the Main Street Franklin Board, and I'd like Lisa Dunn to come up. Hi, Lisa. Hi. We'd like to present you with this award or this plaque for your dedication, and on it says, "We are deeply appreciative with hereby honor Lisa Dunn with the gift in recognition for her passion, unconditional commitment, and enduring dedication service as a member of the Main Street Franklin Oakland County Board of Directors." Thank you. And her date from 2008 to 2023. She just retired.
Thank you. Thank you.
So just want to comment, thank you very much, Lisa. When Pam talked about the dates, 2008.
Wow.
So, you know, I was here, right? We were doing the farmhouse at the time when Main Street was starting. 2008 to 2024, I think the longest serving member, and certainly 16 years dedication, just amazing. So thank you very much, Lisa.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Lisa. Yep.
She's leaving the building like that.
She's gonna stick around for a few more minutes, eh?
It's like we brought the cavalry. I mean, they're lining out the door. How great is this? I'm John Bry with Main Street Oakland County, the county coordinator. I'm happy to be here tonight to keep the good news rolling for Main Street Franklin. We're here tonight to present a Main Street Genesis Credit Union grant to Wanda for Paw Boutique. Happy to report, out of all the grant applications we received from across the Main Street communities across the county, the reviewers ranked this application as #1. So it was the best put together application. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my associate, George Vanettis from Main Street Oakland County, and Wanda to come forward and do the honors and ask anyone to join. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, Wanda really did her homework. She worked really closely with Susan, and the application was just fantastic. She had the vision, and she knows where she wants to expand her business and increase her customer base, and to make downtown Franklin a better place to do business. So I want to come on up here, Wanda.
And Dylan?
And Dylan, you can hold one side right here. I want to present this check.
Go up there, get me out of the picture. I don't do that. You walk the other way. Go up there with council. Pam, you should get in, you guys should get in there, board members.
Yeah, get the board members then.
Come on, yeah, get the board members.
Come on, guys, yeah.
Hold on.
Anything to keep doing.
Get on there, right?
Musha, you are a board member.
So congratulations.
You come over here.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Okay, let me, I'll
This is why I got elected, David. This is why.
I didn't do it.
That's it.
Great picture.
Very good.
So congratulations, Wanda.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
We
you.
truly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you.
So without, Jeremy mentioned the board did a fantastic job pulling together their accreditation materials. They worked very hard on it. Very impressed, so congratulations on that too. Just want to add, Roger, on the sign, Alex and Ron from our design services team, they can sketch something out for you guys that you can take to the fabricators if you want for conversation. And remind the planning commission that if they ever have any questions about planning related to the state codes and things, our land use and planning team at the county is there to help. So if you have any questions, just reach out and ask.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Anything for me while I'm here? I'm going to join the party.
Yeah, just one last thing for Main Street. I wanted to comment, the banners look wonderful downtown. I think it adds an element of beauty
That was
beauty and
Susan.
That
elegance.
was Susan.
So,
Yeah.
great work on that. Yeah, absolutely, very noticeable.
Thank you.
And we can change them out and do other designs.
That's
so
awesome.
You guys let me know.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, pathways, anything to report?
No update.
Okay, old business, consider first reading of outdoor lighting ordinance. We have a letter here from Chris Duzen and a proposed ordinance, so we need a motion to approve this lighting ordinance in its first reading. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the lighting ordinance for the first reading.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any comments, or?
Honestly, I still struggle with this. I do. I'm not convinced, for all the hard work put in here, I'm not convinced we are achieving what we want to achieve.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing I've been saying throughout this, which is just reiterating, my edits have always been that I am one person on council, but my thoughts continue to be aligned with the fact that I think that there is a delicate balance between restricting somebody's use of their property and ensuring and balancing that against the interference of another person's use of their property. And I think that this goes beyond that to prohibit certain lighting sources, uses of lights. And so, again, I do think that this is, from my perspective, overbroad.
I want to make a comment. I live on the northwest corner of the village, and up until 2 years ago, we one of our neighbors invested heavily in noisy generate, blow-up figures that he rotated for every holiday, including St. Patty's Day. And, we're lucky not to have a lot of issues. I think in the village with lighting, the houses are far apart except for the downtown area. And for the most part, I think people are courteous of their other neighbors. I'm bringing up this situation because it's extreme and because despite the efforts of the neighbors to communicate with the village about the pollution, the noise from the generators, which isn't a lighting issue, but the trespass into their bedrooms, requiring them to invest in drapes. And then they were afraid of the neighbor, because he was a pretty high-profile guy, and they didn't call, it was really a problem that went on for years. My point is that that's the kind of situation I think you can fall back on something like this to curb some undesirable behavior, which is really disruptive to a neighborhood. That's all.
Yeah, I take all those points.
And he's gone, thankfully, but
Yeah, but,
But
well,
the-
what I was gonna say is like, again, if I'm looking at this, there's an exception for holiday lighting, right, that is not, so there's different ways that states do ordinance, states, local communities do like seasonal lightings or holiday lighting, similar to fireworks where you time box a period in which it's permissible, so that you don't get ambiguities of, well, is St. Patrick's Day a holiday that warrants lights? Well, yeah, because it says holiday and it's a holiday. And so, again, but that I guess is, so I would question whether or not this actually would regulate it to the extent, again, you could look at the property line, but the inflatables, the extent of the numbers of them, the noise that's created by them are all things that likely wouldn't be covered in this.
I understand.
So, I don't know what the alternative is. Like, I don't know if ultimately, again, being one person, I'm happy to go through and construct, pull out the pieces of this ordinance that I do think have merit to me, which would be, the property line, the color correction. I originally wasn't a fan of trying to regulate color correction, but understand that that was probably the most objective way to regulate glare, was based off of the shading of lighting. So, those type of things I think go to achieving what we're trying to prevent, which is the interference of somebody's enjoyment of their property caused by lighting. But again, I think regulating things like just the unpredictable of being able to anticipate all the unintended consequences gives me a lot of unease.
David?
I too have, since the beginning of this process, have struggled with this. We have, and admittedly have, an ordinance which is very vague. And it seems like we've gone to the full opposite side of the spectrum now and are considering an outdoor lighting regulations which are gonna involve far more administration and questions. And it seems to me that from the beginning, this whole process was knee-jerk. When we asked this at the beginning, where'd this come from? It came from one neighbor dispute that couldn't be resolved between them, which we learned was traditionally how lighting situations in the village got worked out. So it was asked to go to the ordinance to figure out, to answer the question, and maybe the question couldn't be answered by the ordinance. And now in an attempt to try and answer one question, we've created 300 other questions. So as a point of order, I'm going to ask legal counsel, because I should probably know this, but I would like to know from our attorney. The first reading of an ordinance is to put it out there. Will the second reading, is it a published public hearing of any sort? Or is it just gonna be just another meeting and the publication will be no different than our regular agenda publication or what people see and hear on TV and in present?
Since it's changing part of the zoning ordinance, it should be part of a public hearing, so you can do it for the second hearing.
And that's this body conducting a public hearing?
Correct.
Yeah, despite the tireless efforts that the planning commission put in, and the ordinance itself is not a bad ordinance, that's not the issue. The question for me is more, is this really something that the village in a whole is looking to do? And potentially open Pandora's box when there really wasn't a box open? And as planning commission has rightfully, having sat there for 15 years, complained about. They don't necessarily get the traffic that we sometimes get, and they don't get the live presentations that we get. And this isn't anything that this ordinance, I don't feel has gotten enough public eyes on it. Again, another one of the reasons why we've kind of looked for that advertisement board to be out in front of the village so that things like that can be advertised on a regular basis and throughout the month so that people know that when a meeting's coming up and what's going to be on an agenda of importance. So if we pass this on a first reading, it still has to be approved on a second reading. And on that second reading will be after we've had an opportunity to have members of the public that it was published in some way speak.
So once it's approved the day.
So we can't get to that without first approving it on a first reading.
And then I'll make notice to the paper for public hearing for the next meeting. After the public hearing, then you can move to vote for the final and second and final reading, if that's your desire.
Great.
Other council comments?
No, I echo a lot of the same thoughts that Dave and David have said, that, you know, this was in reaction to a issue that had occurred, and the 6, 7, 8 pages, I'm not sure how many pages we're up to, of ordinance language now. So many, it seems to me, so many nuances there about what's allowed, what's not allowed, and how it can be maneuvered, so I'm not comfortable with this.
I like the idea of defining light trespass and the idea of color correction, definition. I think those are, just doing that solves a lot of issues. I'm certainly open to, other changes. I'm not here to create a big hassle in the village, but I think there's a need to have a more objective standard out there, right? And I would like to see this.
I don't disagree with that, and I think that's part of what David's been saying as far as his attempt to simplify it. Very, very ascertainable.
Reasonable goals, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But ways that things can be determined if it is in fact trespassing on a neighbor and
Right.
not regulating all of the other things that have to get regulated in an attempt to get to that point is what concerned me, and whether we're gonna start getting complaints, whether a light's flashing or is this holiday light acceptable, and it's gonna create a lot of problems.
Yeah, the other thing too is, again, this can be an iterative process, right? And so if we start simple with the big things, and then we find that, hey, it didn't actually cover this other issue, and that's a large enough issue, it's a substantive issue for the community, then we can make adjustments to the ordinance accordingly. But I think to come out the gate with such restrictive language, with those, creates an environment for unintended consequences, which, again, I'm happy to go through and try and pull together, keep this, use this document as the template, but go to more, hitting more on the boundary lines and the color correction.
Do you have time for one more comment?
Sure.
Well, hold on, I think he's gonna, Peter's gonna
I
maybe.
think planning has done a valiant effort of trying to cover every possible scenario. I mean, it's comprehensive, there's no question about it, but you do have a zoning, or you do have an ordinance on the books. A bit vague. I think what you're trying to say as a commission or as a council is that we have this ordinance, we just need it simplified, maybe tweaked a little bit so any light doesn't stretch beyond the boundary of that specific home. That could be doable. Maybe you guys can send it back to planning. We've been kicking this around for a while, but you do have an ordinance on the book. Might be a little bit vague, but that could be worked out as opposed to a comprehensive change, like this is suggesting.
Pam, you have a comment?
Yeah, so my involvement with the lighting ordinance is related more to the efforts the groups that were overseeing the streetscape were wrestling with several years ago. And so the perspective that I'm taking is, in these comments, is when a business comes in and wants a new sign and wants some guidance on lighting choices, when a business of commercial property wants to illuminate their building and it would maybe spill, but they love lights, and they want very bright lights, one thing an ordinance does is provide some lanes for, and it's intended to be helpful to the business owner to make choices about lighting. So we have both the historic guidelines, because our commercial buildings are in the historic district, and we also have some guidelines for stated in the ordinance. I don't personally have a lot of problems with this. I acknowledge the really hard work that the planning commission went in, but went through. When I raised the issue, when this process started a long time ago, about, well, what about commercial buildings? What about lighting for the downtown? And the planning commission felt that no separate section needed to exist for non-residential buildings. So, okay, I do maintain and would ask that we consider that and we are going to be getting some new businesses in this village. What do you want to say to them about handling lighting in our commercial district? That's part of what I see this ordinance doing. So I'll just put that on the table.
Good point.
Stuart, you had some comments?
Yeah, just a few things. I know that I've probably talked to you about this quite a bit already. I do like and I appreciate a lot of the comments that have been stated today. I think, starting small and expanding makes sense. I do think, but I also resonate a lot with what Trustee Hansen said with regards to giving guidance to villagers as well as commercial entities, how to provide proper lighting that would be consistent either with the historic district or with recommendations on how to minimize or mitigate light trespass on their own property. I think that at least some framework that would allow them to understand the impact of certain lighting choices on their property that they could look at and point to. It would be helpful whether it has teeth or not. That's up to you. But I feel like we've done a pretty decent job as far as comprehensive addressing many of the options or most of the situations you have to deal with. Whether or not some of those options might be regulated in such a strict manner as written here. I appreciate your consideration of that, but I also appreciate the notion that Trustee Sally mentioned with regards to a measured modification and then future modification. Right, it's our ordinances are living documents, as we see, and technology changes as things change, as laws change. We should feel comfortable making things accessible and more free for our community members. And not completely restricting them to the point where you can't do anything with your own property. So I totally understand that. So anyway, that's the comment I wanted to make. Thank you.
Stuart, is there additional planning commission input that we should seek, or should we just move forward and?
I think at this point, if there are specific items that you'd like planning commission to readdress, then we can look at those items. But this has been on your agenda for a number of months now. It's been on our agenda for, I think, more than a year, years in the past. We're happy to research and figure out new things if necessary. But at this point, I think we send it to you because we feel it's in a good place for your modification and acceptance or rejection. So,
I guess what I'm hearing is, let's not approve this tonight, but let's come back with a.
That's not what I had said.
No,
I was saying, let's try and approve it tonight so that we can get to a second reading and we can get people in the public.
Okay, well, that's fine, we can do
in
that.
here and get some input from the public on
Okay.
whether or not
I'm okay with that.
it's,
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, then we just, we kill it right here and that's
Well-
the end of it.
And we start the process over.
Yeah, I was
We
going to
start the
say,
process over.
the only alternative that I would say to, this is my fear, is that if we do the first reading, we're going to then move to a second reading. We're not going to have a lot of feedback from the community with regard to it. And then we're going to be sitting here on a second reading with pretty much where we're at today. And so my alternative would be not approve it today. Let me go back, try and cut some of the things that I don't think, that are, to me, over restricting, and then we can have a conversation there. Because again, to, I think Pam's point regarding commercial areas, if there is something that is not captured in what I bring back, then that may be something that we send back to planning. But then it's more particularized for them to say, yes, we know specifically what we're trying to provide, right? What guidance is necessary. Or, I think, Stuart, to something you were saying, you can have kind of two separate things. You can have your document that has the teeth behind it, but then you can have essentially a resident's guide to lighting that's like, here are the best practices within the village, and here's kind of the guardrails for how you have to operate within. But again, that would be my alternative to approving it and moving it to a first reading.
I'd really like to see us approve it for first reading tonight. I think a modification of your thoughts, David, because we've had this on the agenda for many times, I think we've had the opportunity for us individually to go through and make changes in this. The input I would seek at this point is, I wonder what our code enforcement officer thinks about this. How enforceable does he think? Is it unwieldy? Is it enforceable? You know, have we asked him? We should.
So I'd push back against that, and I would say, how many he doesn't work in off hours, right? So he's going out and enforcing based off of resident complaints.
Actually, he comes in at night.
So, but is it to go and test lighting without a actual complaint from a
Yes.
resident? If he was standing here, he would say that.
He's pretty marvelous, actually, in terms of the time that he's willing to spend on understanding what's happening in the village. And that's an example of some of the stuff that he's done.
But if I were to ask him, have you driven around the village to look at lighting at night if it weren't prompted by a resident complaint?
I haven't asked him that specifically, although my recollection is that as you guys were exploring this and you were exploring different ideas, he went out and did his own review of what was going on in the absence of a complaint.
Can he be here next month then, if we request it? I would imagine.
You mean a month from now? For the next meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
So what if we did that? What if we also asked Dana to put a link in the newsletter to ask residents to click and take a look at the ordinance? We said we're going to have a public hearing, that's baked into the process, but if you're really looking for more input, why not do that? Why not add it to the village Facebook page as a click? And, you know,
Yeah,
because
just publicize it, yeah.
I like the ordinance, but I hear you. I think I'm past the point where you would be the editor of this. I'd like to hear from new people if there's really a problem.
That's perfectly fine. I just
Yeah.
question whether or not we will, because Planning Commission has had a forum for that to happen.
Yeah.
And they haven't gotten anything, so.
We have really good planning commissioners. We've got a planning consultant who does this for a living.
I'm talking about feedback from the community.
Nobody comes to the planning
They don't
commission
come to the
meetings unless it's
Nobody comes to
advertised.
this.
Well, we have some people here today, but yeah,
Anyway.
if we advertise it, they may read it,
Right.
and they might be up in arms and upset about it, and they might think it's
So I would
great.
just challenge, are we gonna take silence as acquiescence? Do we think that not hearing from people means that they're in favor of it? What do we do when we don't get a strong amount of data points for an indication?
We move
either way?
ahead with our best
Right.
Well, then
judgment,
we do
and
what
then
we
the
do,
ordinance
we-
is tested when there's a problem.
We act as the elected officials that we are, and we represent the people, but I personally would like to hear from the people on this one, to this extent of an ordinance, certainly before I would ever even consider approving it, but before I necessarily want to just kill all of the hard work that's been done. My concern is if we go to a modified version and then present that to the public, then nobody in the public ever got to see the worst-case scenario. So I would prefer to let the world see worst-case scenario, find some of the same concerns that I have with it, and then eventually, if it doesn't make pass at the second reading, as opposed to just not getting passed today, then as Bill has suggested and David's offering to do, then we have reason to say, okay, let's let's go back, because if I was given the choice today, yay or nay, without hearing from the public, for me, it's a nay. But I don't want to necessarily kill all that hard work without hearing, at least giving the public an opportunity to be heard.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a motion and a second to approve this in the first reading, and if we did that, then we can schedule a public hearing next time.
Well, the second reading would be a public hearing.
Right, and then, David, in the meantime, you can at least maybe quantify your proposed changes, so that might be another option that we can discuss at the same time, so, okay. Is that acceptable? Any other comments? So we have a motion and a second to approve the outdoor lighting ordinance, chapter 1470. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
Nay?
Nay.
Okay. 5 ayes, 1 nay. Okay. Golf cart ordinance. We have a letter from McKenna Associates. There isn't a specific,
So we're not proposing an ordinance, we're providing data for what we had discussed as a planning commission with regards to the ordinance, because we never had a public hearing on the golf cart ordinance.
Okay.
So this was in request from trustee Sally in our last village council meeting, where he would like to see more data and understanding of why we decided not to move forward on the golf cart ordinance. And so that's what you see here is the outline provided by McKenna, as well as there were links as well for you to look at of other voices and other situations with regards to golf cart ordinance.
So, to summarize that, one, thank you for providing this. And I don't think you're seeking an action or there is an action to be done with this tonight. So again, appreciate that. I think in most part, we can have a discussion, but I want to do a little bit more research. You said that you talked with, or you saw that Grosse Pointe has a golf cart ordinance. I know Milford does.
So, thank you, David. So I read through the McKenna document here. It seems to be a perfect, the communities that I am aware of that have these ordinances, they love this freedom to have these golf carts. This is not a big deal, but they're very supportive, very positive about it. They would never go backwards. So I see it for myself where I have my cottage. I see it in Grosse Pointe. I see other smaller communities. So, any community can do this. I think we're one of those communities that can and should. Reading through the McKenna document, this is all perfectly reasonable. It really is. There's nothing crazy here.
Right.
And if we decide we don't want to have it on Franklin Road, we can exclude a street or two, whatever we choose to exclude. But it's, generally the communities I've been in that have these, they're very happy that they've done this.
I think if you exclude Franklin Road, the problem is that all those people coming,
Yeah.
that's what they want. They want
Franklin
to be able
Road
to
is
get down.
That's
downtown.
something we
That's the
can
problem.
discuss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If there are concerns like that, we could put that in ordinance ourselves, but I support going forward with this, honestly.
So just as points of consideration, I understand Franklin Road is one of the roads you mentioned, but 13 Mile is owned by Oakland County. And that, I'm
The
sorry?
state ordinance wouldn't allow you to even use 13 mile.
It would allow you to cross
Cross.
directly.
Cross.
Yes.
Exactly. So just consider the roads. And since Franklin does not own any of the bordering roads of Franklin either, Farmington Hills would have to have an ordinance for people to drive up
No,
Inkster
the-
or.
The state law doesn't allow you to go on a road over 30 miles an hour with a golf cart, period. So if you were to do that, you'd be pulled over by the police, you'd be given a citation, and you'd be issuing, that would be a moving traffic violation.
So people living along Inkster, they'd be completely excluded from this ordinance because there's no way for them to access any of our roads.
Without additional action from us,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
If
That's
we
true.
moved forward with a pathway, if there were, for instance, a pathway that.
Hey, I'd love a pathway for those individuals.
But there are communities that do that, right? I'm just saying that, I think that we can't let, we want to be solution oriented. And so to say, there's certain aspects of the community that wouldn't benefit from this, to rule it out, I think, is not where I would want to go. Again, the whole design of this was to increase the connectivity, to make downtown more of a nerve center, to increase the access. We all talk about wanting a coffee shop.
We're gonna get one.
And I agree. And having, I think about what my future in this community is, and thinking about hopping on the golf cart, going down to getting a cup of coffee and driving back. Is it idyllic for me? Sure. But it sounds wonderful, and places up north do it every day, right?
You need an electric skateboard. It's a lot more fun.
I challenge my balance. You may have great balance. I'm not sure I do.
More of a safety issue probably. but-
Exactly.
So I would recommend that we go forward with this. Let's put something on the table to talk about.
Yeah. So let's talk about what those next steps would be as far as, or who wants to be the owner, because I would imagine looking at some of the other ordinances that are.
Well, the Planning Commission has done a lot of work out here. I mean, there's the basics, and there are some additional ideas that could be put on top of it. So if you read this document later, then it's pretty well constructed.
Yep.
It seems pretty reasonable.
So as a body, if you tell us that we want an ordinance that covers this, and this is voted on by the council, for us to flesh out the language, we can work on this and then move forward, right? I mean, that's part of our role.
So I went back and did a little homework. I found the agenda, because I have them, in the minutes, we asked the planning commission to consider the concept of a golf cart ordinance and give us their opinion on whether or not they recommended it. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Chris wrote a memo, you discussed it at one meeting, and you unanimously killed it, saying we recommend not doing it.
Yep.
So planning vetted nothing out on this ordinance, other than the real major concerns. They brought in Chief was pretty much so against it, from what I understand, and it died there. So, but we did just ask them to consider it and give us a recommendation, and their recommendation was no. So
Yep.
if we want to give them more better direction, then we need, Stuart is 100% right, we need to give them better direction, because they did do what we asked them, was give us a recommendation, and their recommendation was unanimously no.
So I think I would like to
Right.
move forward, and we'll take a vote and advise them to make that.
If I could just say just one thing on this topic, when they're comparing cities, those cities that you mentioned all have sidewalks, and so people are walking on the sidewalks. Franklin doesn't have any, so all of the walkers become another issue. We're already, our largest complaint at the police department is vehicles in the same area as walkers that are around here, and complaints about speeding cars around the pedestrians and things. So I would just urge you all to consider the fact that this adds another layer of potential danger, I guess, for our pedestrians that are walking on our streets in Franklin, because they don't have sidewalks. Like Grosse Points all have sidewalks. Their pedestrians are on the sidewalk, so they don't have to worry about that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I know communities where there's the same situation we have. They don't have sidewalks, they have golf carts. It's not an issue. It's not an issue.
Okay, that's not my experience with the police chiefs that have them, but we can flesh that out. And but yeah, and on a personal level, I don't like them either. But that said, I think it's a safety issue for our pedestrians and others, that we're already now, on any given nice Saturday, you're doing a serpentine as you're driving down Scenic or Wellington to get around all the pedestrians. Could you imagine now adding a layer of golf carts that are driving 10 miles an hour into that equation as well? It's very concerning from a public safety perspective. So that's all I would add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If
Take
you're
another
taking any
comment.
public comments on this,
Sure.
I didn't even realize it was on the agenda, but glad that I'm here for that. My name is Beth Dillon. I live in Franklin. I've lived here for 14 years. I came and spoke at one of the other meetings at which this golf cart ordinance was, in effect, what I thought was put to rest with, for mostly the safety reasons. If you're interested in hearing residents' perspectives, like you are the lighting, I will tell you, as a resident who is out walking with her dog all the time, I don't find golf carts on the street safe at all, for exactly the same reasons that Chief Robert said. Every day around the curves, no doubt there's a car coming and another walker and another car, and the cars don't want to slow down. They don't want to slow down for walkers. They're not going to slow down for golf cart drivers. I find it a frivolous ordinance. I think the majority of people in Franklin don't have golf carts. I don't have one. I don't care to drive around in one. It's going to look like Disneyland with people driving around golf carts in Franklin. Franklin is a town that time forgot. They didn't have golf carts back in 1825. I just think it's an absolutely asinine ordinance to put in place to have people driving golf carts around in the village of Franklin. And I can tell you that other people that are probably here that go out walking are going to feel the same safety concerns that I do. So if any other resident wants to come up and say, yes, please, let's have a golf cart ordinance, anybody? I'll be the one that says no. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Appreciate the comment. I will say that the reason that this was brought is because residents have reached out in favor of it, which is why originally it went to planning commission over that reason, was denied. We left it.
Breaks my heart. The chief of police saying it's not safe, and you still want to put it out there for people to say yes to.
And then I had multiple residents then again reach out and ask where we were at with it, which is why we then brought it back up to the planning commission.
It would be nice to have them also come.
Yeah, I mean, I can have them work on, for me, they can't be here, circulate a petition, show your support.
So, I would make a motion to direct the planning commission to propose an ordinance on golf cart usage in the village.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? This is one I am not comfortable with. The safety aspect really bothers me on this, but that's my comment. Anybody else?
I'm having trouble getting past Franklin Road and what our experiences with cars are in that road, and that it's the main artery into the downtown. I wonder how close we are to being able to provide a safe route for golf carts to the central downtown area. It seems to me that adopting something like this would be a real push for either a lane on Franklin Road that's dedicated to golf carts. It's a skinny road, I don't know how we would do that. Or allowing them on sidewalks or something else.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great idea, but I'm just not seeing how it would work. That would be my comment at this point.
Well, so the state law of time doesn't allow it, but that's details to work about how it's executed later. We don't know those answers yet, but I don't want to quash it because there's always, I mean, the world is full of naysayers. It's easy to say no to lots.
I could comment on this as well,
Sure.
really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just, to give the other perspective from the other comment, Can
you identify yourself, please?
Yes. Yes. I don't know, I just wandered in. Yeah, Tracy Stein, I live in Franklin as well, on Carroll by the post office. We have a second home in South Haven where they have golf carts everywhere and all the things. They also have sidewalks, not everywhere, but so I feel like I have a decent experience of what that is like. And I will say that they are very, very strict about the golf carts being, seat belts, headlights, turn signals, horns. I mean, they're basically electric cars, right, in a lot of ways. And they have to follow the exact same rules of the road as cars. I mean, you can't drive one unless you're 16 and have a driver's license. They have, I think it's like a 10 o'clock at night curfew, sunset, basically. And as I have seen it be, it seems a little odd, I think, at first, but once people get used to it, it's not really all that different than a car driving down the street without a sidewalk. And if anything, you can stop a whole lot faster, and you're typically not going as fast as a lot of the cars drive around here, which is another issue as well. So I just wanted to say a different perspective. I think it would be really great and cool if it was handled right and everyone followed the rules and did all the things they're supposed to do anyway. So
Thank you for coming up and speaking.
Okay,
So
thank you.
what you're expressing is the same thing I personally experienced
Yeah.
at other communities. The communities end up loving them
they do.
and it becomes a non-issue from a safety.
And it adds an element of fun, I guess, in a different sort of way. That's just kind of, to drive across and go to the softball games or to do different things. I just think it would add a new kind of interest around here that would be kind of fun if done the right way, for sure. Because I
Okay,
understand the
so we have a motion on the table and a second to direct the planning commission to develop a golf cart ordinance. Let's vote. Dana, would you take a roll call on this, please?
Trustee Early?
Had to be first, right? What? Yeah, come on back.
Okay. President Lamont,
No.
trustee Solly,
Yes.
trustee Hanson,
No.
trustee Hanky,
Yes.
trustee Goldberg,
Well, you wanted to be on the spot, I'll say yes.
trustee Ehrlich.
Honestly, Bill, I hadn't finished our discussion point, but let's go ahead, let's have the vote, because all we're doing is asking the planning commission to consider it, but go ahead.
I want to say no. However, I see benefits to discussing it and going through it and evaluating it again. I see I see benefits to the roundup, to the parade is what I'm thinking in my head, of having golf carts pulling things, and that would be a lot of fun. I see Al Becky riding his golf cart around town, which is Jesse Poland's golf cart, and I see that happening already. And I love that he's able to do that. So I'm going to say yes.
Very good.
Okay. So we have, what's the vote? 4-2. So get ready and,
Yep, so just to be clear on the direction, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the motion was that the planning commission will write up an ordinance, make a proposal for golf carts, regulation in the village, and then, and bring it forth to council after our public hearing.
Right.
Okay?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
okay, don't go too far, Stuart. Consider the master plan's goals and objectives.
So in your packet today, you received the same letter we received last week from McKenna after working with several of our commissioners on regards to the village planning commission's goals. Consistent with the direction I think that the council had, the council had for planning commission with regards to having goals that were vague and not as attainable, but had been historically the same. Our plan, we decided to recategorize goals that we think that match the village character as community values, with the intent to focus on 3 primary goals that fall within those values. The intent for this is that the values change little over the time in our master plan, and they're explained in the documents below. And then the goals would align with one or more of those values to help achieve a consistency with those values, something that we can measure and track over the coming years. So that's really kind of what that was our intent. After working with those in the planning on this topic, I agreed with several of the trustees in regards to we had too many goals and it was difficult to follow how we would achieve those goals because some of them were perpetual. So I think this is a cleaner way of looking at our goals as well as our values, because I think there are core values to Franklin. I mean, it is the town that time forgot. And I think part of their character is because we try and maintain certain values as a community. So, please.
Yeah, I think that you guys did a really nice job on this. Pam raised an issue. Whoever's idea or all of yours idea, I'll let you all take credit for it, of separating out values from goals. That these things that are inherent values of ours aren't goals because they've already been achieved. The issue is maintaining that achievement. So separating out things that we are going to now treat as inherent community values, different from what you're calling goals, which are supposed to be able to be accomplished within a reasonable period of time. So awesome way to take what Pam was concerned with, and I'm not going to speak for Pam whether that satisfies her, but I understood her concern, and this as a resolution is a really nice job, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was, I would just echo those sentiments. I was really impressed and happy when I read through this. I thought it was very digestible and gave clear direction, so greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I really like what you did. You know, we all talk about village character and we use it as an argument point. And what you've done is you've defined it. And I really like that. I think the old format, it was a little tough to figure out. I mean, it's a traditional format.
Right.
But it was a little tough to figure out, well, how do I pull out the stuff that we really care about and we're gonna commit resources to? And I think this helps a lot. So I mostly like the organization around values. And thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you. I look forward to sharing those sentiments with planning. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll come and tell them. I'm happy to do that.
You're more than welcome. We can have one more member attendance. Always welcome.
Stuart, nicely done. You know, Acting Vision, this can be on the website at some point. So when people start looking at Franklin, what is Franklin Village? They find us on the website. What is our plan? Start looking at community values. Oh, this is easy to understand. So I look at this as, so first, I wish I could write this well, but so nicely done. I look at this for the future residents, try and learn what Franklin is, or maybe brand new residents who moved in. What are we doing here? And it says a nice thing about the village. So
thank you.
I support. That's great.
Thanks.
Good job. Are you looking for anything further from us?
No, we're going to be putting these into the master plan. It'll, as part of the process of completing the master plan, we didn't want to move forward without presenting these to council to make sure that you're in line with or agreement with the process that we're proposing, which is the values and goals. The next step would be to discuss how we implement that into the master plan, and then modify the master plan to make sure it's in line with these overarching values and goals.
Cool.
And then once that's done, then we would bring our master plan to council, and then also have share it with the public, the neighboring communities, as well as have a public hearing at the for
Any
it.
further comments from council? Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Next item, we have a couple consent agenda items, the bicentennial birthday party on July 13th and Oktoberfest on October 4th. Do I have
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, new business, consider proclamation for Arbor Day 2024.
So we did both. It was both Oktoberfest we did, and we
And
did the bicentennial birthday party with that.
right.
Okay.
The bicentennial birthday party is really going to be cool. The Friends of the Library is spearheading in that one, and they've got a lot of neat ideas. So plan your vacation so that you're here July 13th. It'll be well worth it, so. Okay, Arbor Day 2024. There's April 26th is Arbor Day, and there's a proclamation in your packet. Do I have a motion to approve the Arbor Day proclamation?
I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right.
Any discussion about Arbor Day? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next one, West Nile, we need why do we need this? Oh, to get
Every year.
$493 in funds, eh? For our,
This is just for the little circles that
Mosquito
go in
pig.
The
the,
little pass outs,
Yeah.
gotcha.
the little,
Yep.
Okay.
on the pond.
That's what we use it for. So do we have a motion to approve the West Nile Virus Fund Program resolution?
I move.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, next item is, consider putting 32350 Franklin Road on notice of the village intent to terminate and revoke license to use a public right-of-way.
Bill, you want me to?
David, you want to take
lead
this
on
one? Yep.
So, this item is something that, I want to say, for the last almost 2 years now, at the tail end of being on planning, since I was appointed to council and then elected on council, I've received communications. I think council has at various times received communications about this item. The information has come in sporadically. It has not come in organized. It has not necessarily been vetted out and disseminated through the village offices. Then when I got on legal committee, items came to me as legal committee, things came to legal committee. It's come in all kinds of forms. It's come in forms which I've tried to disseminate to council, which are just impossible to send in an email because they're like hundreds of gigabytes. that have been kicked back, and I've gotten to a point that I'm not very comfortable being the disseminator of that information. It's not my role, it's not my place. The issue of the fence itself was initially raised on the basis of it's a contract between the owners of the property and the village. It was something that was in just focusing, not taking into consideration any of the information that's been given to me, because as with everything, there's, and I, assuming residents are here to address it, there are information from the other side that has not had an opportunity to be discussed or presented, knowing or not knowing that this has been going on, I guess, underlying behind the scenes with requests from legal committee to bring this forward, bring this forward, bring this forward. So it's gotten to the point where I'm not comfortable leaving it in legal committee to decide whether it should come forward. I have tried to focus at this time entirely on the document itself, not on any of the circumstances around it. And some of the circumstances in the document that have been presented to me in the course of this is why I've asked to bring this forward for the village to consider. So what we're talking about is a license that was granted to the owners of the property 25 years ago by the village council at that time. It was to allow the, a fence to go up, I believe, probably where it's not permitted, and also to allow it to go in and encompass some of the village right away as part of the area that is inside of it, as you will. The property is definitely in a unique location in consideration to the commercial aspect of the post office, which has been raised to people that have now reached out to me on the other side. But when I look at the document itself, so this was something that was approved in 2009 when Jim Pickles was the president of the village. A contract was prepared like 2 months after that meeting that it was approved by the council. And according to everything that's been presented to the village, it never got signed for a decade. So from 2009, from 1999 to 2009, it operated without a contract being in place. Probably somewhere along the line, somebody said, hey, we never got around to dotting our I's and crossing our T's. So 10 years after it was initially created, it finally got signed by the then president of the village, which from my understanding at that time did not get re-vetted out by the council. He just, because of what the council 10 years prior had approved, said, oh yeah, I guess we should sign this. So then he signed it on behalf of the council. In the course of what's gone on, there have been issues that have been raised about the things that go on the property inside the fence, as well as, you know, should the fence be used inside village property. So I went back and I looked at the contract, and there are things that I would, if this is going to remain, that I think the village won after 25 years, and 7 councils probably later at least, that the current council should at least consider having it continue or not, or continue on some modified basis. The contract that was signed 10 years later references an exhibit, which to this day I've never seen anything attached to any of these that actually say Exhibit A to this document. There is a survey that's been included, but I don't know if that's a survey of the property or if that was the survey that was intended to be Exhibit A. So nobody's ever produced this Exhibit A. In the purpose of the permitted use, it was for the purpose of installing and maintaining the subject fence and not for any other purpose. Of the complaints that I have received over the time, one of the complaints has been that the owner's dogs are also allowed to be in that area because it probably connects to the backyard as well, and that residents have complained that the dogs have startled other residents. So, you know, I think that we should look into whether or not the idea of, or not for any other purpose, was that a purpose that was intended, and if it is or isn't, we should at least address it, because it wasn't something that at the time was considered when it was just the idea of putting a fence up and not the idea of what happens once the fence is up, and that it's now created a contained space. There has been issues about the insurance, which, again, in and of itself, I think that it should have been honored. I'd like to know that insurance is in place now, but historically, it has not been in, for the last 25 years, continuously been in place. These are all things that have come to my attention that I can't just tell the people that have complained, I unilaterally, or we as legal committee are unilaterally the ones to say yea or nay to this. So I think the time has finally come that we need to bring it to the council. I was not planning on this meeting being that hearing, if you will, although I wouldn't call it a hearing, I would call it more just a meeting to consider. The contract itself allows the village to revoke it at any time without reason, but it also requires us to put the owner on notice. And being a village, I would consider due process would also allow them an opportunity to be heard. I know they're here today, I'm assuming, and would probably like to speak. I don't want you to think that this is your opportunity to, I in fact would prefer less information now, because what I want is I want to have this officially be opened. And I don't even think in April is enough time. I think we need to wait till at least May to consider it, to allow 60 days for one, any resident who wants to provide either an opinion, a letter, they can certainly come and speak when we have our public hearing, or our meeting at the time. But if any resident, now that it knows it's out there, wants to put in their 2 cents about it, the resident or residents that have had concerns, I would like any information, whether they've given it to us already 1 or 7 times. I would like it to be resubmitted. I'd like it to all go through one point. I'd like that point to disseminate it to everybody in some way, shape, or form, even if it means you go and buy 7 thumb drives and disseminate 7 thumb drives to us. But I would like everything to be in one place. I would like the owners to have an opportunity to be heard and present why they use it, how they use it, responses to the concerns, and then 60 days from now, allow this council to decide whether or not, because aesthetically, it's, you know, yes, it's wonderful, but that aesthetics and its intent of aesthetics might have triggered other issues, and I think it's just something that we should, on legal committee, have not been comfortable having to be the champion of, and sort of, because I don't want to be that. I just want to be one of 7 who analyzes it. So that's why I sort of wanted to almost do like a timeout and say, I'm not the middleman on this. The village administration and the village clerk should be the middle person. And anybody who wants to submit information should get it back to the village clerk in the interim, if this is something we can, we want to consider doing today. And that's why I sort of brought this to the front.
So thank you, David, thank you. You and I have talked, I've certainly seen your emails about this. Yes, there's a multitude of documents out there, and yes, I think it's a good idea to bring it all together at one point, have the conversation. 60 days seems perfectly reasonable.
And if that's not, then I'm not, I chose 60 days, 1, because I think that's at a minimum enough time. 2, we'll also make sure that we have a full council here in May, so that's why I was proposing that. But if it was even more time than that, if that's what the council and everyone feels is appropriate to get everything in and reviewed, then I have no problem with that. That's it.
Are you taking public comments?
I don't know, it's not my meeting.
Well,
Any other
Here.
council?
I mean, they're here. How
I
can we
would-
not?
I would probably, this is just a notice to put things in consideration before we start opening Pandora's box with lots of, conversation about it. This is the same situation where we
I
have
certainly
a
think the
lot of-
Hinnants should have an opportunity to speak. Whether we should start
Are there-
taking residents' comments.
Are there other council,
Oh.
Pam, you have comments?
No, I wanted to hear the rest of Mark's comment.
Okay.
All we're doing is giving a 60-day notice to get your conversations in, get your data in, get your points made. I'd rather do that in a coordinated fashion than just having some folks show up today for this reason to have the conversation. It's just, it ended up being very lopsided. So I would hold off on conversation, discussion, decision-making until 60 days from now. Let's wait till we gather all that evidence.
I think these people have been so patient and sat through this entire meeting. They have the right to speak on something that they're passionate about.
absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what they have to say.
Pam, you have any comments?
I would like to hear from, I've received several phone calls. Some of those folks are here. I'd like to do that. I think one of the purposes of this conversation tonight is to get some understanding of what's the problem we're trying to address here. And I'm not sure we're there yet. So that's my intention.
Personally, I'm comfortable with the agreement as it exists, and I'm not sure it's worth the hassle to rehash it, but that's my personal opinion.
like to
If there's
provide-
no other comments from council, let's take a few comments.
I'd like to
from-
provide
Can you
some context.
do 3 minutes?
Yeah, we got a lot of people, so I'm going to have to limit you to 3 minutes on these
Sure.
guys, okay?
It won't take that long.
Okay.
It's not that involved, notwithstanding the gigabytes.
Okay, go.
My name is Mike Liud. I am an attorney. I'm not here so much as an attorney as I am a neighbor trying to diffuse a situation that, quite frankly, I don't think is worthy of this council's endeavor. This is not a very complicated matter. You have a license, not really a contract, right? It's illusory at best. There's no requirement for one party to do anything. One party, the village, granted a license. The Hinnets could have or not decided to put up a fence. It is a license much like going to a sporting event. You have a ticket. You have the right to go in, you view the game, leave. It doesn't confer any rights. The Hinnets have no rights. Pointed out by David that it can be withdrawn at any time. So the perspective is this. The permit was granted 25 years ago. For 25 years, both parties, the village and the Hinnets, have lived under this agreement, right? It was a grant. It was a gift. It wasn't memorialized for 10 years. Not the Hinnets' fault, or not anybody's fault. It was a miss, right? 10 years after, they executed the agreement from 10 years ago, and there's lots of infirmities in the contract, most of which are the village's issue. One, the date is just handwritten in there. It's not initialed. Fred, who's a good friend, was a village president. He signed it, not initialed, right? So it's not perfectly executed. What is important is this. The permit, in effect, the controlling signature is Fred's or the village's, right? They're allowing them to do this. And the Hinnets turned around and said, okay, I'm going to put a fence up. The village, for 25 years, has not acquiesced. They've acted as if that they gave them the right, which they did. The Hinnets have lived up to the conditions of this agreement to the extent that they knew about it. For 10 years, they didn't know about it. When they brought it to them, they said, yeah, fine. So the insurance has been in place continuously from the moment that they were told they needed it. And that's a fact. So when you get through the rest of the contract, or the agreement, not contract, the agreement, the permit, they have to maintain the fence, right? They've done that. It has to meet with the code of the historical district, which they've done. More to the point, it was raised initially because of the proximity of the front door to Franklin Road and the back door to the post office, which all of us have used the post office, and it's treacherous to say the least. Backing up, who's turning left, who's turning right.
His 3 minutes
Mike,
are up.
you're out of time here, but wrap it up, please.
So I'll wrap it up.
Let him talk.
Yeah.
Let him talk.
Okay.
So the point being is that it was a safety issue, pure and simple. What happens within the border of that fence that they have dogs? I have dogs. They run all over the house and they bark at everybody. That's what dogs do, right? The village is littered with dogs. And all we ask is that you pick up their business.
Bill,
So there's nothing that's
your 3
happening.
minutes are over.
But there's not, I don't think you should need to cut me off on this point. The point is simply that they've lived under the agreement, right, as presented to them, without interruption. And it's not worthy of, you want to review it, you can review it, you can revoke it. You just have to revoke it, take down the fence, and my grandson who's over there walks out the front door, gets hit by a car. Do we really want to have a memorial of teddy bears and flowers?
No.
Right? That's the purpose of it. So, I take that certain members are agitated with 3.5 minutes, but the fact of the matter is,
4.5 minutes.
there's nothing in this agreement that is worthy of this consideration, other than you don't want the fence there, which, if there's no safety concern anymore, if Franklin Road has become less busy, if the post office is going to move, maybe. But because dogs are running around in the backyard, come on.
Okay.
I'll take my 3 minutes.
Real quick,
My name is Beth. I live on Carroll Avenue. I've lived
Real
here for
quick,
14
Bill.
years. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a comment?
Okay, time out a second.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make clear for the record, the reason that some members are agitated over the 3 minutes is because you have cut off people over the 3 minutes before when it's seemingly something that you disagree with, as well as the fact that you have yourself, standing in the position of president, not allowed people to yield their time to another speaking resident. So I think the agitation is not the message that's being delivered, but your partiality or impartiality of enforcement of the rules.
Bill just said to stop at 3 minutes. Both of us said go on, and everybody else was saying go on. It wasn't Bill who let him go on, it was all of us arguing.
Kathy, he's the president, he runs the meeting.
Okay, sometimes situations are different at different times.
Okay, when?
It doesn't matter, let's go on.
No, because
I
I'm
don't-
talking
I
about
don't-
the impartiality, so if
I'm
you're gonna
done
make that
talking about
statement.
this right now, it's fine.
Okay.
So are you going to hold people to 3 minutes, or is it open?
I would like to hold people to 3 minutes. I did not hold him to 3 minutes because several other people stepped up and said, he can have my time.
But you have not, hang on, you've not allowed that previously, sitting as the
This
president.
situation's never,
Your point is well taken.
Right.
I apologize for taking more than
Okay.
3 minutes.
okay. Beth, you want to go ahead?
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I have a couple of questions before I can state my perspective. Maybe the council can shed some light. How many residents have complained about the fence at said property?
That's not the point.
Good question. I'm
Hang on,
actually
let her
curious.
talk, this is her time. Please, she has 3 minutes. Anybody who wants to speak, you have 3 minutes. It absolutely, we need to be more disciplined.
I hope that didn't take away from my 3 minutes.
It doesn't.
I mean, it's a simple question. How many have complained about the fence at this property?
We'd have to look that up.
You'd have to look it up.
Yeah, we'll dig that
Okay.
information out.
Has
More than one.
more than one. Has anybody complained at the fences on the property at the Snow House on Franklin Road? Otherwise known as, what did I put on my addresses? 32635 Franklin Road. Has anybody complained about the fence in the right-of-way on that property?
Not me, but-
Has anybody complained about the fence near the right-of-way at 32444 Franklin Road? The Realtor office, the wrought iron fence. Has anybody complained about the fence near the right-of-way in 26111 Carroll Avenue, 26200 Carroll Avenue, 26081, or 26025 Carroll Avenue, which are all fences near the same right-of-way on the historic district? Has anybody made complaints about those fences? So, in effect, we don't know how many people or who. Are we able to name who is complaining about the fence at said property? Nobody knows. So this seems like a targeted attack on this house. There's no reason why. My mind goes, if you're going to take down this fence, what about all the other fences in the historic district? Are we looking at like another major renovation against all the master plan that we've been putting all the money and funds towards for the past few years? That's one point. Another point. That property is a flagship property. Anybody who comes to downtown sees that property. It's a beautiful house. It's a beautiful fence. They maintain it. The rose bushes are beautiful. anybody who comes to the parade, goes downtown to the post office, they lay their eyes on that property, and it's a lovely sight. You take down that fence, not only is safety an issue, cars are going to be running over the lawn. It's going to be in a constant state of disrepair. There's going to be constant, marks on the lawn, people driving over it. It's not going to be a beautiful property anymore, and it's going to look derelict because I wouldn't want to be out there every time someone drives over my lawn and fixing it. I'd also like to speak to the neighbors that live there. They are the most wonderful neighbors. Their dogs are the nicest dogs. I walk my dogs everywhere in Franklin. They are the nicest dogs in Franklin. I'm sorry?
15 seconds.
Okay. I would call them the doggy ambassadors. They're nice to everybody. The neighbors are wonderful people. They have been so supportive of me ever since I moved in, and especially since my partner passed away. They showed up at my door, not having known them from anybody, with gifts and cards. And I just feel like that this property is being targeted for unknown reasons. I don't know. None of the other properties in the historic district are. So I think that most of us here want to keep that fence. Thank you.
Before you leave, real quick, could you, I want to make sure I have all the addresses that you listed off. So you have Snow House, the 3244 Franklin Road. Could you say the other ones?
Sure.
Thank you.
Because if we're going to open a can of worms, we might as well pull everybody into this fence ordinance, because I think that's only fair. Sorry. 26111 Carroll.
Slowly, please.
26200 Carroll. 26081 Carroll. 26025 Carroll. 32635 Franklin Road. 32440 Franklin Road. So I don't think it's going to move changing an ordinance and accosting all of these people with all of their fences that are supposedly in a similarly right-of-way, because a handful of people are startled by dogs behind a fence.
Okay, any other?
Thank you.
Comment, David?
So, one, this is specifically why I had preferred to not do this, but if we're gonna do this, brought this for the purpose of the fact-finding mission more so than a predetermined resolution. But all of the properties that were just mentioned, not one of them have a contract with the village in order to have that fence, nor does that contract allow those residents to encompass village-owned right-of-way as part of it, whether the fence is up or not. We also are, the fact is that part of what the fence is encompassing isn't just, hey, can I have this fence and put it on my property line? Can I have this fence and encompass village right-of-way? So that is a differentiation between the two. And because it's based upon a license or a contract, however brother counsel would like to refer to it, as a contract attorney, this contract's an abomination when it comes to, it was, I think, put together hastily. It certainly wasn't negotiated. I don't know if it was ever brought back to the council to be vetted after our attorney prepared it at the time. So all of these things are relevant to the discussion of whether it should continue. I do question whether or not the spirit and intent of this was, and trust me, I've looked at the situation and I have dogs myself, and the particular dogs they own at this time could be the most passive breed known to man. That doesn't change the fact that people have complained that the dogs have startled them in the past. And was the spirit and intent of the contract in encompassing and protecting the front door from the children that could walk into traffic to allow the backyard where most people keep their dogs to come to the front yard? So that is an issue in this whole revisitation of, was the intent to allow the dogs at least in the front portion? There are ways to separate what your front fence, because not everybody has their whole property, four corners encompassed. A lot of us have our backyards or portions of our backyard enclosed, and most people that enclose their dogs in the front yard do it on some of the larger properties using electric fences. So those are all the things that, again, have come to wanting to bring this, me personally wanting to bring this to the front, because I haven't been comfortable being in the middle of it, but to differentiate between those comments and why we're sitting here today is that all of those are general common law. I don't know how they got there in the first place, whether they were approved and whether they get to stay or not. This is the one that it's based upon a contract, and I want to go back and revisit the contract and make sure that we're all good with it, and that's where I'm at.
Okay. Let's hear some more from the audience here. Anybody else with comments? Or?
Quick. Hi, my name is Casey Ryan, resident of Franklin, 32320 Bowden Lane. And, you know, I'm standing in my father-in-law's childhood home, which gives me some chills, which is kind of nice. But I just wanted to make one comment, and I want to kind of piggyback on what Mike said. You know, we have 9.5 grandchildren, all 7 and under. I've known the Hinnants. I've known Katie since, I've known Katie for probably 50 years. I went to high school with her brother. I've known her parents. And our kids, our grandkids, when we have them over, they do come and visit the Hinnants. We have our kids from California who stay with us for the entire month of July. And so they are all around the neighborhood and spending time at the Hinnants as well. And Mike just put a visual in my mind when I thought of one of our kids running out of their house and in 8 to 10 feet being on Franklin Road. So that is a concern. I think it's a beautiful fence. They're wonderful people, and I think it'd be a travesty to take that fence down. And in conclusion, this ain't about the fence. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'm Katie Hinnant, fence owner. And I just want to say that we have no intent ever to hurt people, startle people. We want to live in peace. We want everybody to feel that way. We're willing to talk about it. I would be heartbroken if that fence came down after 25 years. I think there are ways that are less severe than this. We're open. We want to put these things to rest. Our dogs are psychiatric service dogs. They don't go outside unless one of us is out there with them. For the past couple of years, we let them outside only to go to the bathroom. We bring them right back in. If somebody walks by and they bark, we grab them, or we say hello to the neighbors, and whoever comes pets them. And then as soon as they're done, we go back in. They're not in our yard on their own, ever, especially the past couple of years. I take them for walks every day. You've probably seen me, so that's how they get their exercise. We're trying. We're trying. We care a lot. And we haven't bothered anybody because we've just wanted to live our lives. This is important to us. I think it's important to the village. We try hard, and we've always tried to have a beautiful home. We've been very proud of it. We've always tried to be great members of the community. If our dog startled somebody, she was a puppy, she's not anymore. We're trying. We don't let them out alone. And please don't force us to remove our fence. There are other ways around this. I don't know what else to say, but we're open to trying to help.
Thank you, Kate.
Be a solution.
Okay. Anybody else?
Time, one more comment?
Sure.
So that's part of the reason why I've asked to get us here today, because information needs to come in better than hearsay and happenstance and not necessarily substantiated. And that's the whole reason why I want this to be reconsidered. It's not a personal issue, it's more an issue of, if you were complaining about something that concerned you in the village repetitively and repetitively and repetitively and repetitively, and it was ignored and not even brought to consideration, you would be equally as upset as you are for us considering this issue. So you can only say, no, you don't get your day in court, if you will, not necessarily you, but the complaints that we've been receiving, we can't selectively, selectively decide what information comes to us and what complaints come to us. But when it gets to a point that it's resonated to the volume of information that's been presented to us, I personally just want to revisit it. And everything you're saying is not necessarily untrue, certainly from the aesthetic standpoint of it, and I don't think any of this has to do with the aesthetics of it. I think it's more some of the functionality and some of the, as an awesome term David used, unforeseen consequences of what has evolved from what was originally intended. And I'd like to get public input so that we're not only getting one side's perspective voluminously and not getting residents' perspective, which I'm glad that, you're giving us, but I mean, we're village officials, we have village public emails, we can't tell somebody not to send us information, and when it gets to a point that enough's enough, then I wanted to bring it forward. This could not get passed here today potentially, and then that will be the end of it. All I'm asking is all I wanted to do as being a member of legal committee and being the person who was at the forefront of all this information, to bring it to the council and say, I think we should revisit it. If council doesn't want to revisit it, then probably ends today.
I'm sorry. There you go. All right. Hey, guys. Mike Stein, 26111 Carroll. I have a fence that's bad.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right, Beth. Don't worry about it. Right. No worries, no worries. I just want to start this off. I moved in this neighborhood 40 years ago as a 8-year-old kid. I have babysat and met all these people years ago. This is what neighborhood and community is, and I apologize to you guys. Mark, you haven't looked up often, but I'm going to single you out, no offense. I apologize to you guys, because this, to me, is community. What you're doing, unfortunately, I feel bad for you, is a waste of time. Because we know the elephant in the room. I won't say any more about that. But if this doesn't show you the support and what we used to do when I was 20 and go to your neighbor and say, hey, your dog's barking, can you bring him inside? What happened to that? And now we're doing this? I just don't get it. So, thanks, guys.
Okay.
I should say something. I'm Robert Hinnett, 32350 Franklin Road. I put a packet that I put together for each one of you tonight. I hope you had the chance to read it, but it's exactly what has happened since 1999 for 25 years with back up to it, and I can provide you any emails that I have. And it's not like I had to go and create this since I found out about it. I was on the agenda Thursday night. These are files that I've had my entire life since any of these things have come together. So I just had to go to my files and bring them out to you. I'm not quite sure why it's come up over 25 years. I can only imagine. But I'm happy to, do whatever you need me to do to sign a document to keep the fence. I mean, I don't know what else to say. We're here. I thank everyone for supporting me. There were a lot more people. I told more people not to come, and people still came. So I can't stop that.
Okay, we've had a discussion. We don't have a
Bill,
motion
I
on the
want to
floor.
add one comment. So I think Mike was Mike, first speaker, said that the documentation was of no fault of anyone, and I'll disagree with that. It's the village's fault, right? Like, let's just call the elephant out.
But de minimis.
I
De minimis.
agreed, but
Right? It's how the parties acted.
I have the email.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
It doesn't matter. No one's pointing fingers. It's just, it was granted, right? And the emails that's in the packet, when the attorney, whoever it was, discovered that it hadn't been properly or executed at all, they had to go and do this 10 years after the fact. But for 10 years, they acted as if it was there.
Understood.
And so it isn't about, like I said, de minimis error, resolvable, right? It's a fence.
In the meantime, I was living under the entire, whatever they gave me.
And all of that to say is that we need, I continuously harp themes across is improving formality for these exact reasons, which is it may seem onerous or bureaucratic red tape at the time, but without formality, it creates a lot of chaos years down the road. And so I'm not here trying to play games when I'm asking for the addresses that you said. It's that they were said quickly, and I do want to do my research on it to be able to be considerate of it. The other thing with regard to this is my request would be if we do consider it and we do get the information, because again, I think to David's point, it matches up with the fact that we don't have a clear record, is that I want it very narrow. Like, what is the particular question that's being asked? Because I don't want 500 pages of documents with 450 of them being irrelevant to the issue being asked. So that would be my only consideration from the village, is that, that we have a very particularized thing that we're considering. And it's not kind of ambiguous to each one of us in how we interpret the documents.
I think, respectfully, I would say you're making a mountain out of a molehill. I think you have to come back to the general purpose intent, safety, right? The aesthetics, and that the property or the right-of-way, the fence, presents no liability to the village, which the contract, I disagree in the sense that it wasn't negotiated. It's not intended to be negotiated. Here are the terms.
Yeah, your terms.
We'll grant you the permit.
Right.
Here are the terms. You look after it. If your contractor, if you default on your contractor installing the fence, you're still liable, that you indemnify the village. If there's a problem, you indemnify the village. And what else do you ask for? Right? There isn't anything else. There's nothing else. The village has no liability. And what they wanted it for was safety, right? I mean, there's a car coming down the road, which did happen, right? I mean, now you're getting into the weeds. I think it was Roundup or one of the parades came down, went off the road because it used to go northbound. That's why it goes southbound now, because a car went down, went off the road, and you don't have to, so it's going to hit the house. It's going to hit the house. It's going to kill somebody in the house. It's 10 feet. So there's poles. Those posts aren't moving, right? So it is protective, and it's aesthetically correct to the historical society. It looks great. It would look ridiculous to take it down, but that's not the point, right? It's the point, do they maintain it? Is it in compliance? Is there a reason for the village to allow this to happen? Yes, it's on the right of way, but this is what you get to do. If you need to put in sewers, you can make them take it down, and they're okay with that, right? So it's a right of way, like any right of way. We all encroach on the village's right of way. All of us that live in the village, right? It's too small not to. With set-offs and all of the things that come before this group, right, or the zoning board. So I don't think it's anything more than, does this fence make sense for the village? Full stop. Is it a legitimate safety concern? Does it aesthetically look good? Right? Now, what happens within the fence? Fine. Okay. As it was discussed. What's the problem? How much of the problem? Let us address the problem.
And what is the impetus that these residents want it taken down? Like, if you can't tell us who.
Okay, so, again-
We need to wrap this
Purpose
up.
of what was being brought to the village council today out of the legal committee is, does the village council want to revisit this contract? Or do we want to allow everything to remain on the status quo, and the document that dictates how since we're now using names, the Hinnan's fence exists is this document, and not clean it up,
Or
and,
re-execute the document.
well, again, that's part of what this all could get to at the end of the course of these next
But again, I
60
think
days.
if we're gonna.
If one of the issues amongst those that complain are the fact that the dogs are there, that's a simple remedy. You can still some way, put a little barrier, a new fence up between the front yard and the backyard and let it.
They're not connected.
Right, so, I mean, technically, you could let your dog out in the backyard, which is also fenced.
We do it both
and that-
ways, but they're talking about all.
Right, so if one of the modifications, just the agreement was, yeah, you can keep your fence, but you can't put your dogs in there, that would certainly address a lot of the concerns that have been raised. So the point of this is to get all of the input. Like I said, this came from the fact that everything has run through me, and I can't get it out. I have 234 gigabytes of videos of the dogs. And I will respectfully say, they do, on occasion, chase, because I have seen it on video, run after someone walking, they don't do anything, I don't know any harm's been incurred. People do appear on some of those to have been startled. I don't think anybody dropped dead from a heart attack. I have had a complaint that someone that was startled was more significantly affected by it. So that's all, again, information that is running through me, and it's not my role to have it run through me, so I need to punt. And the only way to punt is to put it back on the village to say, deal with your contract, deal with the complaints, and if we're gonna revisit this, everybody should have an opportunity to submit what they wanna submit in a specific forum, in a specific location, and then I would like to, in 60 days from now, revisit it, and if in the 60 days, resolution could be reached some other way, then that would even be
So
better.
if this council decides we want to move forward with this, we need some sort of motion that defines what we want to do and when we're going to do it.
The way that I don't know if it's specifically said on here, what I was asking council to consider is to consider putting the owners on notice that we want to consider revoking it. Not that we are revoking it, that we want to consider revoking it, and under its terms, we have to put them on notice, and I think as due process,
That's not what you suggested. You didn't
That's not what I
suggest anything
suggested.
about revocation, you wanted to gather all of the information. Period, full stop. Not starting with, we're considering revoking it, and now we're gonna look at the information. Just don't get the information.
So,
Yeah, I think it
Bill,
might be a little early on that. Let's gather,
All right, again, I'm, again, one person and one suggestion, and I have not made a motion to any effect at this moment. So,
I'm not clear
If-
what we're
Let's
looking
make a-
for.
let's-
What are we
let's
gonna,
make a
what are we
motion.
gonna ask
to
who's
get
somebody to do?
all of the information that I have seen in your guys' eyes, so that you're all seeing what I've seen, and then you can decide for yourselves if you think it's an issue. I'm not saying whether I'm deciding now it's an issue or not. All I'm saying is, I have been forced to be the focal point of the receipt of information, and because of its volume, don't have the physical capabilities of getting it out to everybody.
So can
So I
you-
want to do a start over. And if the start over, I thought that in order to start it, we had to put someone on notice that we're gonna do it. Otherwise, they'd be like, well, I don't need to submit any information because you're not considering doing anything.
So,
That's the whole reason why I wanted to,
David, what you're saying makes sense.
I want it, 60
So-
days from now, I want to
Could we-
consider
can we-
revoking
Can we
it.
make it, can we make it positive?
Hold
That's
on.
one issue.
Can we
Dogs
make
in
it
the front
positive?
yard, there's
No.
one issue. By the way, these are
Let David, or Bill, take control here.
Hold it down. But, David, we gotta define, what are we gonna do, who's gonna do it, and what's the time frame? I'm still not sure what we want. You can distribute all the information you have tomorrow. Just do it.
No, but that's the point. I don't even know everything that I have. They've come to me in 70 different correspondences. I've saved some to the computer, they're in emails.
So where are
I
we
don't
gonna-
think,
where are we
so
gonna
I
get
want to
all
go
that?
back to the people that are here today, that have an opportunity, and if they want to submit stuff, or just come back and speak again, or they've already spoken. And then all the information that I've gotten, I would like that resubmitted, not through me, to the village clerk.
so
that
we want-
The village clerk can disseminate it to all of us, and we all get the same information.
So we
And
want,
if that's not anything that you guys want to consider, then don't consider it.
okay, so I get, well, again, let's put this in a motion, that you want anybody that has any information related to this issue
I
to
will make a
pass that
motion.
information?
I will make a
Okay.
motion to get it out there. I move that the village receive information over the course of the next 60 days so that at the May 21st meeting, we consider whether or not we want to revoke the license between the village and the Hinnants.
So,
And based on its contract, it allows the Hinnants notice, which I think we should give them technically formal notice if you want from our attorney versus this as their notice. And allow them an opportunity to be heard. And the people that are opposed to it, an opportunity to be heard, and an opportunity, if they don't want to be heard, to submit information, and then in 60 days, decide whether or not this is something we want to do. And if we're like, no, everything's fine, it should remain as
Can we
is.
just change one word in what you said, instead of revoke, reevaluate? It'd be a much
No.
more positive way to do it, and I think it wouldn't be so charged and so triggering and so upsetting.
We got dogs in the front
Bill.
yard, so we want
No,
to take the fence
sit
down
down.
so the dogs can run out into the road.
Dana, did you, that was a pretty long motion. I don't know that you could possibly capture that, but, do you? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, so any further discussion? In my view, this is a lot of work for a very minimal result, and I'm not sure it's worth the effort. But that's
All right.
Lamont's perspective.
Take the vote.
So, any other
You can
comments?
change the word to, like I said, or you don't, nobody, you want to go in or change that word? I just, to change the word from revoke to reevaluate, just to reconsider.
Hold on.
Just to
Beth, hold on, please.
I think it's kind of.
So, okay,
Okay.
We have a motion on the
I
table.
will change my language, that we are, that I want to receive information so that the village can reevaluate the contract that it has with the Hinnants.
okay. And you're okay with
I
the
second.
second? Okay.
It's not a contract. It's
The
a
license that it
permit.
has.
It's just a license.
It's a license.
When
That's
two
right on the
parties,
beginning.
I understand, but when two parties signed it, it becomes an agreement.
Okay.
It's a
It's
license.
a- Okay.
There are obligations on their part.
Let's, time out, let's, Dana,
We
you
can have
want
a philosophical debate on legal.
to, right, you can do that after the meeting. Dana, you want to take a roll call on this, please?
Trustee Solly,
Yes.
President Lamont,
No.
trustee Hanky,
Yes.
trustee Goldberg,
Yes.
trustee Ehrlich,
No.
trustee Hanson,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. We'll figure out what we had to do to get everything to Dana.
Is the motion saying reevaluate?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, let,
We need to do it in 30 days, I don't know if I'm gonna be in town in 60 days. I don't need any more time to prepare.
No,
I mean, I'm
60 days.
prepared tonight, but.
we're, I think we're already there. Well,
In April, is that a problem?
we'll have to
Yeah.
talk.
Let's move on.
My concern is the time for it to get in, the way it's gonna have to be disseminated, it's gonna have to be copied, it's gonna have to get onto thumb drives, it's gonna have to
You have my
get,
submission. You have my submission.
I don't know, we just approved a motion for 60 days, I don't know.
Okay,
Next item.
it's 60 days, so. Okay, let's move on to the next issue here, and that is consider excess signage on Franklin Road. There's a sheet in your document, pictures of signs at the post office crosswalk and 14 Mile and Evelyn.
That's why I didn't.
The objective is to determine, do we have too many signs and can we clean it up? My sense is we can take a lot of the signs down. In the lower right-hand corner, it's got a stop here for pedestrian, put up a couple of these at each crosswalk, and it takes a place of at least the post office crosswalk 9 signs. You could replace those 9 with 2.
So, Bill, the pictures that are across the top of the page,
Yes.
the two outside signs that are pictured there have been removed.
In the last few days?
Yes.
That's a progress. So there's 4 signs, 5 signs that are gone? The no parking sign's gone also at the right?
Those, what you see there has been removed. I can't tell you what every other
On the
sign
two
there is.
lateral edges, you're saying?
Pardon me?
The two on the lateral edges in the top
Yes,
row?
That's right.
Okay.
The left and the right side.
Got it.
Okay. So the question in my mind is the vertical crosswalk sign, the gray one, is in severe need of refurbishment.
Not to mention the plastic.
And the
that keeps
plastic one
getting driven over and
gets
is
driven.
a
So
hazard.
do we replace those two with two signs similar to at the bottom right? Bottom left?
You guys give us direction on what you'd like to see used there, and we'll figure it out.
So the plastic ones are in two locations. One's at the post office and one is between my office and the gas
I
station.
think there's
at
4 of
least.
them.
Oh, there's 4 of them.
Right.
So the one there that's near me is flat. It falls over.
Right.
I've had to swerve, I've driven over it. It's
Oh, you're the one.
well, after it's been put down, yeah, after
but
it's
you were
fallen
right
in the middle of the
behind
road. Right. It's a hazard for sure.
So normally when we have situations like this, we say, look, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
And we either, if it's an easy fix, we figure it out right here, or we say, let's appoint someone and let's do an evaluation
Sure.
of all, and let's
Right.
come back so we can consider a recommendation.
That's fine with me.
I'm not necessarily advocating a consultant, but when you brought this up before, you have said that you feel like there's a lot of sign pollution, particularly along Franklin Road in the central district.
Right.
So that's a problem. You've given us some examples. What would you like to do with this?
Again, I think what we just talked about on the post office crosswalk sign.
You want to tackle it as just sort of,
perfect.
take this one off, take this one off, take this one off, like
You know,
that?
we keep saying we want a comprehensive plan, and we never get there, so we gotta take it a chunk at a time. And these are 2 areas that I think have particularly high number of signs that we can address. And if we wanna get some more professional people involved or whatever, I'm okay with that. I just want to address the issue that, hey, we don't really need all these signs. We can
So-
stay legal and,
Yeah, I mean, I totally fine getting rid of unnecessary signs. I would be interested in Chief Roberts' opinions on some of the signage in, for instance, we have a sign that says crosswalk, crosswalk, and then one in the middle of the road. And the question is, are the 2 on the side immaterial, and really the difference is the one that's somewhat impeding traffic, or is the one that impedes traffic really maybe, it doesn't
Dan,
matter.
have you?
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
I'm sorry, I
The thing
didn't,
that I would encourage you is to hire a firm such as Hubble Roth and Clark, who are designated traffic engineers who can make the determination of whether or not they're enforceable. Because we can't, as police officers, know, a lot of times whether a sign is, for example, there's certain height requirements that they must meet. There's certain reflectivity requirements that they might meet. And so I would just suggest that, the ones that we put in the center of the road, yes, while they get run over all of the time, they are certainly more visible and I think probably obtain their purpose better than the other ones do, just because nobody pays attention to those less bright ones. But I would think that we need probably an HRC or somebody like that to take a look at it, just to make sure that we're conforming with our signs in compliance with state law on them, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the signs between 14 and Evelyn, a lot of those are just information signs. Do we-
Yeah,
Do
well,
we want
right.
those or don't we?
And that's, I don't know who maintains the relationship with whoever does the Rogue River watershed, and the Tree City USA. I would assume that those are the 2 that you're talking about. Of course, I appreciate and like the design of the Welcome to Franklin Village, and I would imagine that many people within the historic district like that marker as well. It's just people in general in the community like to understand where the historic district actually is located. So it does feel like outside of something other than a consultant like Hubble Roth and Clark, that those 2 signs would be the ones that you're kind of saying. And I don't know who maintains those relationships to say, are we angering somebody?
Right. you know, and the Welcome to Franklin sign, if you look at it closely, it's in severe need of help. It's faded, it's, the
The
posts
FCA
are,
put those up years ago.
yeah, yeah.
8 of them.
So,
So here's
Yeah,
an,
maybe-
here's an idea, you know, and I do want to hear what you think.
That's fine.
But other cities have appointed commissions or a temporary committee that includes representative from the planning commission, a Main Street rep, because they are concerned about the downtown, the historical society, because they're concerned about appearance, or the historic district commission.
Yeah.
And come back with some recommendations. I'm less enthused about HRC because I think you're talking aesthetics.
Right.
You're too many signs and they're kind of a quilt.
Well, and I think there's a role for HRC, but we need to decide,
But let's define what we want for
Right,
them,
right,
from them,
right.
before we hire them again to do
Right,
this.
right.
I'd support some kind of a ad hoc, time-limited group to take a look at this and come back.
I'm good with that.
I think that's wise. I mean,
No, I
and, so when are we gonna have our budget for next year? Maybe when we go through finance, we add some money to the budget for any updates to our nice Franklin Village signs, any refreshments. So 60 days, 90 days, what do you think? Time limited.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Your turn.
The council has to adopt next year's budget by the June meeting. So we will have some of our preliminary discussions in April. There'll be a meaty discussion in May. That'll be the heart of it, and that should result then in a recommendation that you guys would consider adopting at the meeting in June. So we're just less than a couple months away from getting into that conversation.
But we could allocate some funds, you know, for potential sign redo.
Absolutely.
You know, we don't have to immediately appropriate funds for something. We need to figure out what it's going to
This
take.
ain't a lot of money. This is a couple $1,000.
Well,
Yeah.
but I think it's important,
Right.
this appearance is important, and we've got a lot of stakeholders that care about this and maybe have different ideas
Right.
about what the solution is. I'm not particularly bothered by the signs. It's kind of a crazy quilt like Franklin is, but I'm not gonna stand in your way
Right.
here.
So I'm okay with establishing some sort of, Stuart, you got a comment?
Just a few things. I mean, this seems to be a periodic discussion about signage in the village. I mean, I've been in the village for 8 years now, and I think that this is at least maybe the third time that signage has been discussed in cycle in those 8 years. There is an existing document from HRC when they went through and did a study on all the signs in the village. Now, those signs have changed since that study was done. Where they enumerated all the signs in the village, and then an efficiency and traffic pattern was done also with regards to signs in the village. With regards to signage on Franklin Village, like Welcome to Franklin, those signs, we've had derelict signs since I moved in. At the corner of 13 Mile and Franklin Road, there was probably at one point a nice sign on the corner there before we had the landscaping was put in for the sidewalk. There are walls that, as entrances to various parts of the village, that have also become derelict. So that you can see there was existing walls that show kind of an entrance into, say, Lucerne, or I think Woodside, Woodlore, on the south of Scenic. So there's definitely things that would welcome people into the area that have been run down that haven't seen much attention. Those previous studies were mostly on efficiency for traffic patterns, consistency in signage, making sure that they all look similar or uniform within the village, and then also downtown, do we want to have something different? So this is a periodic theme. It comes up periodically. We clearly are passionate about how we represent ourselves, and signage is one of the ways that we do so. So I think if we're going to emphasize time on signs, the signs we want to have, we should maintain and make them look nice. And before we decide spending money on removing signs, we should clean up the ones we have, is my personal opinion. The ones we want to keep. So, thank you.
So how do we want to move forward?
Pam suggested.
Yeah.
Getting a commission, a time-bound
Okay.
commission of interested people
So-
to provide a recommendation.
Okay.
I think that makes sense.
So do we want to appoint that commission, a committee, or whatever you want to call it? Do we want planning involved?
Well, I don't mind planning involved in anything. Sorry, Stuart, it's late. Let's make a resolution.
Yes.
So here's a motion. I'm going ad hoc on this, I'm not good at motions. Council will appoint a task force
There you go.
that is comprised of representatives from planning, the village administration, that could also extend to the police, Main Street, and either the Historic District Commission or the Historic Society, to work together to focus on
I would say excess signing as well as.
well, disposition of the primarily informational signs,
Right.
right, in the
Well,
downtown
some are
area.
regulatory, that are not needed, but again, that's something we have to
Yeah.
decide.
So that would be my recommendation. I'm glad he brought up the HRC study. Yes, so, sorry.
I would suggest that this commission, once they form, they create a charter for the purposes, so we understand clearly what they're going for and matches what our vision is.
So and the committee will be limited to a 60-day period. And the first report we'd like to see from them is what they see their desired outcome is, the purpose of the group, what their scope is. Let's call it that. Sound okay?
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any further comments?
Just a practical execution of the motion. The Main Street needs to be notified. Historic Commission needs to be notified, and planning we have a meeting next week, so we can easily ask someone to be a representative for that committee.
And I think
60 days after
So-
you've accumulated your people on
Get
your
the group
committee,
together.
that's when it
And
starts.
Roger, I'll leave it up to you to, let's find the membership and get it rolling.
Got it.
Does
Okay.
that work for you? Is that enough direction?
Okay.
I do have another question as part of the conversation that we had the other day. The question was, the street name signs, blue and white with village logo?
Actually,
That's next on the
that's next on the agenda, and I just,
No.
Yeah, there's E here, consider village.
street names.
Well, good, I moved us along.
You should include all of them, right?
Last week I was in Yellowstone, and this is part of, in the north area, they've got I can't think of the name of town, but this was a particularly striking sign because of the blue background and white. It had a historic feel in a historic district within Yellowstone. So I just wanted to pass that along. It's very different from anything I've ever seen, and it's something we may want to
Well,
roll into this same committee.
so, I'm not clear, are we gonna, I guess, science
This is
strategy
a
committee?
different issue.
It's two
See,
separate
different
items.
issue.
Completely separate items.
Right.
What we just dealt with was Bill's concerns with clutter in the stretch of basically Franklin Road that we want to analyze.
Right.
Two, we've already engaged, and it's part of our packet, we asked Roger to get pricing for us to replace every single sign in the village. There's like,
Stop.
right, so for essentially $8 or $9 grand, that doesn't include the installation cost, and that's why we've asked him to now get a cost, we should get Jerry to get us a cost. For $9 grand, using our existing poles, plus whatever cost Jerry is for install, we can have a uniform, pre-designed, I think that's what we need to do, is have someone design, pre-designed street sign everywhere. And for $9 grand plus installation, use the existing poles. Phase two, maybe, get a price to what it's gonna cost to replace every pole with a nice, new, clean, uniform pole, black or, wrought iron, but right now, it sounds like for $8,000 and, like,
9,700.
no, the other one's 8,000.
There's two? Oh, I only saw one. I didn't see, I didn't turn it over. I didn't turn the
8,125.
page
Well, there
over.
were two separate proposals.
Right.
Got it.
One
So,
lower than
right,
the
I'm
other.
so called $9,000 in the middle of the road. For roughly $9,000 in material and call it, I don't wanna speak, maybe another $10,000 in labor.
Agreed.
We
Agreed.
could,
So,
clean, boom, fresh, clean.
are we finished with E that, or D that
Yes.
this question? That's all set and voted on.
Correct.
Right,
All right,
right,
all
We're
right,
on E now.
all right. E.
right.
Yeah, we did not vote. Yeah.
Let's vote on D.
Oh, we didn't vote.
Let's
Oh.
vote on D.
What were we voting on?
So we need to go back
The
and vote
task
on the,
force.
Task force.
The task force.
My bad.
okay, I'm sorry, so we're gonna go back to item D and vote on the establishing the task force. So we have a motion and a second to establish a task force. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, the village-wide street sign thing, I'm not sure how we move forward with that. We have, David, you've
Well, no,
got-
I mean, all I'm saying is I was encouraged to see that for roughly $8,000, we can get all the
It
material.
would be a lot more than that.
I thought it'd be way more than
I did
that.
too, and then,
Bill, I have no problem, I mean, this is
I think this is much nicer than
this is
gold.
clean.
I don't
Right.
know.
Blue and white just seems a little random out of nowhere. We haven't used blue and white anywhere in the village. We've got
Green.
other signs that have been green and gold. So I would say the next step would be, okay, we have our idea around the cost. Let's get a cost on the installation part.
But we also need to make sure that the design with the logo is consistent with what they've said here, because they haven't seen our logo.
Where's our
We
logo
don't-
gonna
You said
go?
anything
don't
about
need a
logo
logo.
yet?
We don't need a logo.
We talked about it, but that's not
I
required.
mean, this isn't a logo, right. Well, a logo, I didn't look closely on whether a logo was considered a logo, but no.
But
so,
No.
It was?
So it'd be
For an
cheaper
upcharge?
without a logo.
Right.
so there's two halves of this. I mean, two halves of.
Look it in your folder.
Of this item E. One is, consider it, okay, so from a cost point of view, 10K for parts and maybe 10K for installation, that sounds pretty reasonable. The second half is the design question.
Right, right,
The design question, what design do we want?
How do-
This is one idea.
right, right.
So,
But what have we done in the past? Do we have someone that we've gone to? Do we have,
I don't think
it's
we've
been a
ever
minute
done that.
since you guys did the sign. Well, Mike told me, Seltzer told me he was on council and was part of whatever group led the charge on the 5 or 6 Welcome to Franklin signs.
I thought that was an FCA.
Yeah, FCA.
Oh, maybe it was an FCA.
But it was,
FCA,
Yeah, yeah,
before my
I'm sorry,
time.
on FCA, he said he did that.
Right.
So, so clearly at some point we had, engaged someone, it would
Well,
just.
we have
seem
a
to-
company that we buy all of our signs from,
And
and it's,
They
the
can give us
specs are really
ideas.
inconsistent.
they've been doing the green and white signs for us for years. And
We
they're,
we can't just go back to all new, clean, exact what we have. We gotta get something new. right?
well, and that's part of the discussion that you guys need to have.
It's got, or at least freshen them up.
Could we have this committee give us a recommendation
Yeah.
on
Yeah, so let's
the
have that
street
too.
signs?
Why not?
Add this to the,
Yeah.
yeah, the assignment
Let's
for the
add this to
committee.
their scope,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
by resolution, I think that what we're saying is, they might be separate purposes, but they've all got to talk to each other.
Yep,
Yeah.
All right, so I'll move that we modify that task force to also ask that they consider design options for new street signs in the village.
Yep.
And that in the interim, we also ask the village administrator to get costs from from Jerry, I don't know, we officially call Jerry, our do-it-all guy,
Hanson
on cost
Landscaping,
for installing 200 and some signs on existing poles.
so I guess one thing, if, I guess what I like to brought forward to, if we're making a decision on design, maybe 3 designs or 4 designs, here are the top 4 options we see.
Right.
So,
That would be great.
something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
the other thing too is as we're coming up with coloring, let's be mindful and evaluate or consider ADA compliant / best practices.
Agreed.
These were super reflective signs too, when we saw them at night, but I think that's something we need to do. so.
Yeah, I mean, the text is real clean,
Right,
the font.
Okay, so we have a motion to add the street sign, development of street sign recommendations to the task force.
Street
In a
name
second?
signs.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. You clear?
Yeah, I was just thinking that you ought to distinguish between street signs, which are the regulatory.
Street name signs.
Street name signs is
Yes.
what we're talking about here.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Last item on the agenda, new map for the village.
So I gave you guys all a resolution, but I decided to change it, and I have a new one written, because I think it's the same thing essentially, except I took away the request to pay for shipment of the booklets to the different homes, to all the homes. So what this is this is the Franklin Community Association of Franklin Historic Society is putting together a very nice Welcome to Franklin book that's going to orient the people, the new, the old, as to the history and to what is available, how people can participate. And this is on, if we look back on even our master plan agenda, one of the main items in community values is to encourage citizens to participate in volunteer organizations in the village. And I think this is one thing that could hopefully help to do that. And so, I wrote up these resolutions, and I'm really asking essentially for $500 for the creation of a map that designates just simply the community areas, the church property, the village green, the police, the Broughton House, the Krieger House, the library, the FCA property. Basically, those areas, so that we can, and then they'll have McKenna basically give some outlines where those dividers are, but also show where the restrooms are, where the drinking fountain is. So it really serves a purpose in identifying who owns what, but what's available, and what we have to offer the community.
So Kathy, the booklet was really well written. I think it's great, so I support. I don't think it's be hard, so.
So do we have a motion to approve this resolution, or this,
I move.
resolution? Motion, second?
I have a discussion point. Oh, did
We
somebody
need a-
second
we
it?
need- Nobody seconded.
I can second for
Okay.
discussion. So I fully support it. I don't know that I want to go through a resolution rather than just a vote.
I would prefer a motion too.
Tell me, just out of curiosity.
No,
Out of
And
curiosity.
there was a lot of time
Yeah, I
and
know.
good effort in this, but I don't want to, as part of this,
Correct.
acknowledging and admitting to any of these things, I would just like you to move. You'd like to move that we give $500 for the creation of a map for the welcome book that outlines and defines, in fact, I'll move that we donate $500 to pay for the creation of a map for the welcome book that the FCA is putting together that outlines and defines Franklin's community properties, Village Green, library, police station, et cetera.
So that's your motion?
Yeah.
You second it?
That's my motion.
I second.
So,
Okay. Further discussion?
yeah, just, I suppose, I don't know if I should discuss it here or the meeting might adjourn after this, but, has there been a historical reason? When I read this, it got me thinking, is there a historical reason why the FCA, or the Historic, Society has not previously put their name in for the CDBG funds?
I don't know what that is.
We do the community development block
I think we're
grant.
not government.
Yeah, it's,
We're
I
not
think it's a
government.
government
We're
I
not
don't think they're
for-profit.
eligible, are they? I bet they could be.
Well,
We've gotten CDBG funds as a village before, but not,
We've allocated them, but they would have to come to the village for award.
Yeah. My whole
Isn't that
point
what we
is,
do for-
rather than sending it outside of the community, why wouldn't we just allocate those so that we're benefiting directly into the community?
to me, the issue was the effort of putting that, application together wasn't worth the minimum amount of money that we got.
That makes sense.
Yep.
And the other thing about the CDBG funds is that they're typically focused on trying to do goodwill kinds of stuff in the community, supporting needy folks, elderly, that sort of stuff. That tends to be the focus for that.
Okay.
However, just as a point of, not for the minutes, but Bloomfield Township gets a load of money, CDBG funds that they spend in their community. I would like to know where,
Yeah.
before we reject the idea of throwing that money at the
Yeah.
FCA. I'm serious about that.
Well,
I love our
We
agencies,
would love
but,
to redo those tennis courts.
you know,
So badly love to redo
Because
them.
it seemed
They're
like it was
so
like a
expensive.
$5,000 or $6,000 maximum that we could get. That's all we could get out of
We're
CDBG.
off
It could be
topic.
based on
We're
what
off
I
I pointed out that I was off topic.
It's 10 o'clock, we're off topic.
I
What are you doing?
appreciate it, it's just I would love to circulate the funds directly
Right,
back into
right,
the local.
right.
We'll discuss that in our finance.
Fair enough.
So do we need a vote?
So did we vote on the map or
hold
no?
on, before we go aye, Susan's in the audience, and I want to make sure that you have the map that you want, but there's a lot of village maps around.
There isn't one. I asked McKenna. McKenna says that they don't have one. That to
Okay.
be able to use. I've asked them.
Susan, is there a map, or is there a less costly resource in the county for the kind of map that these guys need?
I have to find out. I can check into it and see.
I would doubt that
I'm
the county has the
fine allocating the
detail.
funds, but, get somebody who's really good at this, and you'll get a lot for your
McKenna.
500.
I mean, it's McKenna is what I'm
Okay,
asking to do
okay.
it. And McKenna said this, they gave me the quote of $500.
Oh, fine, okay, then, all
Yeah.
right.
And then
Okay.
we can
I
use it
just
for the
feel like
master
we've
plan
got
too.
maps.
I thought it was so nice, we can put it in the master plan in the
Well-
future,
Okay.
because we don't have anything to designate that in the master plan right now.
So all in favor of approving the $500, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And the meeting is adjourned.
I thought our agenda was so,
You thought what?
I thought our agenda was so.